Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
There she is. She's back.
Hey, Rick.
How are you doing tonight, Lori?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I am just fine. Wow.
Been
So
a
much to talk
very
about.
interesting week since we saw each other last.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
A lot going on.
Yeah, and it continues tonight. Vladimir Putin addressing the nation again, following whatever you want to call that thing that we witnessed over the past few days with the Wagner. Do you say Wagner or Wagner?
Wagner. Of course.
Pronounced both theys.
Yeah, I think the correct spelling would be, or pronunciation would be Wagner, as a reference to the composer that the Nazis liked so much, of course.
So, yeah, Putin. Pretty level-headed, pretty calm. Yeah, steady hand. Honestly, I have to say I was pretty impressed with him.
Again, I mean, he's a mystery wrapped inside a riddle, wrapped inside an enigma.
Thank you, Churchill. Thank you.
He is. It's been tricky to figure him out the last few days, even for someone like me who studies him pretty closely. The address that he gave today was a pretty stark contrast to the one that he gave on the day that all this was unfolding 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Boy, he was mad. I mean, you never see Putin lose his cool. You never see him get angry, but you could see in his eyes that steely determination, and he was pissed. He was just straight up pissed, and who could blame him?
Yeah, well, I think that Prigozhin is lucky, honestly.
Luckiest man alive. He's
now.
Lucky to be alive.
Exactly.
Yeah,
alive for now.
For now.
He might find himself jumping from a balcony someplace soon.
Stumbling in front of a train.
Yeah, maybe. You never know.
He's disappeared. Well, he did disappear for a while, but no, he's still mouthing off, isn't he?
Yeah. He's got cojones. That guy.
I'm telling you. After this, he'd be wise to just shut up. But no.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know what you do when you back yourself into a corner like that. Do you shut up, or do you double down, come out even stronger? I don't know what you do to protect yourself.
So what is he doing? I haven't had a chance to catch up on the latest from him today.
I don't know, because I've been following the Putin stuff,
right,
and listening to a lot of other people sort of analyze what, just find out what other people are thinking about it. And I'll tell you, the theories out there are all over the map.
They are, truly. Even from a lot of people that I look up to and respect, like Colonel Douglas McGregor. He had some interesting comments about it. Did you see what he had to say?
I did. He was on the mother of all talk shows with Mr. Galloway.
That's right.
I did watch that. I thought his analysis was interesting.
Not what I expected to hear from Colonel McGregor at all. He didn't even want to say that Wagner was a mercenary group, even though it seems to me they clearly are. I hate to disagree with Colonel McGregor, but I have to disagree on that one.
Yeah. They're definitely a mercenary group. He can sugarcoat it. I don't know what his reasons for sugarcoating it might be, but yeah, they're a mercenary group.
Well, hopefully we'll get a chance to ask Colonel McGregor more. We're going to dig into that a bit more. He is scheduled to be on the show sometime this month here on Maverick News. We're just working on nailing down a date, but he's already said yes, and we're really looking forward to that. And boy, I've got a lot of questions. A lot of questions. Yeah. Hopefully he can explain that more.
He's the guy with the experience. He's the authority. So I'm also looking forward to having a chat with him.
Well, that's why I'm not so quick to dismiss what he said. It just kind of took me by surprise, and I'd like for him to dig a little deeper and explain that more. He also had an interesting take on the unfolding of events the last few days. Some things that I hadn't really considered. He made some interesting points. And I hope everyone will go watch that. That was on the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. He has quite a following. And he disagrees with Scott Ritter, who
Yeah.
actually said something very similar to what I said. Like, I came
He
out
did.
from the very beginning
Right.
and I said, probably some CIA involvement. They're probably manipulating things to some degree, not entirely, but they have to have their fingers in this someplace, trying to manipulate the situation and maybe even making Prigozhin an offer that maybe he found hard to refuse. I think that there's probably some psychological warfare going on with the Wagner forces, and maybe him directly, where they're feeding him information. I think that that attack on his troops was probably real, but I would not be surprised at all to find out at some point that it wasn't Russia attacking the Wagner forces. It was probably something initiated by the CIA and some, black ops thing to convince them that they were being attacked by Russia, to stir the pot, knowing full well that the defense minister Shoigu and Prigozhin don't get along, and he's got some issues with some of those other generals. So I think there's manipulation.
I agree. I think that that attack on their camp was a false flag. I don't think Russia did it. More likely, our guys did that. Wouldn't surprise me at all. It's just what we do. And it would have been a way to, get Prigozhin all fired up. Obviously, he's going to be angry. And somehow they got him to believe that Russia did such a thing. It doesn't make any sense for Russia to attack the Wagner group like that and to kill their own men. It makes about as much sense as Putin bombing his own pipeline or, sabotaging his own dam or any of the other multitude of things he's been accused of. But it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. And, my personal theory is that I think that Putin set him straight, probably through intermediaries, as that attempted whatever it was, coup or whatever you want to call it, was unfolding the other day. When that convoy stopped outside of Moscow City, they were already in Moscow Oblast, but they had not yet crossed into the city limits. And I think something was probably put to them very clearly that we didn't attack your camp. And if you take one more step into Moscow, you're not going to like the way this turns out for you.
Yeah.
They were ready. Moscow had their troops ready in battle positions. If they had to defend the city, they were ready to do it. Thankfully, they put a stop to this before it escalated any further.
And what do you make of these conflicting reports where we're hearing on the one hand that this was bloodless, that there were no casualties, but then also hearing that there were anywhere from 15 to 39 Russian soldiers killed in helicopter crashes or helicopters that were taken down by Wagner forces? Where do you land on that one? I saw a video of that were supposed to depict attacks on Wagner forces, but even when I saw them in real time, I was still skeptical, and I said, I don't know if that's real or not. And I didn't even run the video because in a situation like that, I thought there's so much propaganda and fake stuff going on. I'm trying to be extremely careful about anything I run or say.
Right. A lot of this video is contradictory and confusing. And so you have to really look at the sources. Of course, we know it's also possible to manipulate videos and create fake AI. So while all that was going on and events were moving so quickly, it was very easy the other day to get fooled, get fooled by some fake news. You had to really do some due diligence before you went with something. And unfortunately, most journalists covering it the other day did not do that and ended up reporting some really wrong info. But our friend Ava Bartlett, who's actually over there reporting, has been a guest here on this show several times. On her Telegram, she had some pretty clear evidence that uh, those shoot downs were what we were being told. Just the opposite was true. And I tend to believe Ava Bartlett over the other sources that I saw. She has a
Yeah.
good track record of being correct and
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, and the other reason I'm thinking that those reports were not accurate is because they again are not consistent.
Right.
15 here, 39 over there. Like
Right?
where's the truth? Where's the reality in it?
Mm.
I wasn't putting much stock in it.
Which is why I haven't talked about it much. I was participating in a huge Twitter space while all this was going on. There's a guy named Mario Knopfel who hosts these big Twitter spaces, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger as the day went on. This thing went on for 20 hours, maybe the longest Twitter space in history. It started in the middle of the night, the previous night, and I stayed up all night as a guest on that Twitter space. Didn't get a chance to say much because there were so many people talking. I couldn't barely get a word in edgewise. But the panel of speakers there were a lot of pro-Ukrainian propagandists, guys like Malcolm Nance, for crying out loud. Lev Parnas was there. And I wouldn't trust a word that guy says as a source. So a lot of the sources that were participating in it were dubious, but we also had some good sources. We had my friend Tara Reid, who's in Moscow. She's stuck over there in Russia now and can't come home. But she was in Moscow as all this was happening. And she was also on that Twitter space, basically contradicting everything that these propagandists said. But there was so many lies and so much disinformation that was being fed to us in that fast moving situation. Now, you could say that, well, we just got it wrong. Maybe some people just got bad information and reported it accidentally as true. I mean, as a journalist, when you're covering breaking news, sometimes you can't always verify something before you go on the air with it. So it could be that. But it could also be propaganda that was being fed to us, just out and out lies. Things like, we'll have a new president by tomorrow, or that, they said that a firefight broke out at Rostov. Never happened.
Yeah.
Never happened. And they were saying that,
tonight,
they were.
I mean, mainstream media here in the West, right there. I'm seeing reports that this is still the beginning of the end for Putin.
Yes, they're still saying that. Even though Putin's address today said just the opposite.
Yeah. In fact, why don't we
take a look?
Let's see what Vladimir Putin had to say today in this live address to his country and the world. Here we go.
Oh, we have no sound.
This civil solidarity has shown that any attempts to blackmail us and to spur internal chaos are doomed. We have shown Supreme Consolidation Society and executive authorities of all levels a firm and clear position of support for the constitutional order was taken by civil organizations, religious faiths, and leading political parties. Practically all Russian society, everyone were united by their sense of responsibility for the fate of the country. Since the very beginning of these events, all the necessary decisions to neutralize the threat were taken and to protect the constitutional order, lives, and safety of our citizens. The armed mutiny would have been suppressed in any case. Despite their loss of reason, the participants could not understand that, including the fact that they engaged in criminal actions splitting apart the country, which is now facing colossal external threats and pressures. When our comrades are dying at the front lines, holding on whatever the cost. But the mutineers betrayed their country, their people, and they betrayed those who they dragged into this affair, who they pushed to shoot at their comrades. It is this fratricide that the neo-Nazis in Kiev and their Western masters wanted to see, and the various traitors as well. They wanted to see Russian soldiers kill each other. They wanted to see Russian servicemen and civilians die, and ultimately to see Russia defeated and the Russian society split apart and in a bloodbath. They didn't want to take responsibility for failures in the war and with the so-called counteroffensive, but they miscounted. The law enforcement authorities and the military were loyal to their oath and to their people and to their duty. The courage and sacrifice of the pilots who died prevented a tragedy on a national scale. At the same time, we know that most soldiers and commanders of the Wagner Group are also patriots of Russia, loyal to their state. They proved this with their courage in combat, liberating the Donbass and Novorossiya. They were used blindly. They were thrown against their comrades with whom they fought shoulder to shoulder for its future. So since the very beginning, I gave orders to prevent bloodshed, and we needed time for that, including to give an opportunity to those who realized they'd made a mistake to rethink their decision, to realize that they're putting society at risk and that this is leading to destructive consequences as a result of this reckless affair. I thank the soldiers and commanders of the Wagner Group who made the only correct decision and refused to engage in a fratricide and who stopped at the last line. Today, you have an opportunity to continue your service to Russia by signing a contract with the Ministry of Defense or other authorities, or go back to your families. Those who wish may go to Belarus. The promise I gave will be fulfilled. I repeat, the choice is up to you. But I'm sure that this will be a choice of Russia's warriors who realize their tragic mistake. I'm grateful to President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, for his efforts and his contribution to the peaceful resolution of the situation. But I repeat, it is the patriotic spirit of people, the consolidation of the entire Russian society that played the deciding role in these days. This support allowed us to overcome this hard challenge. Thank you for this. I'm grateful.
And again, a very level head and a steady hand at the wheel. He didn't overreact. As a result, I think that a lot of lives were saved in the end. And I think he wound up in a stronger position because he still has those Wagner forces at his disposal, at his service. And a strange thing has kind of happened where he has been able to again reinforce his position, strengthen his position strategically, because those Wagner forces are being relocated up into Belarus. And when you combine those Wagner forces with the forces that are already there, he has, I think it's somewhere now around, well, he'll end up with about 70,000 troops, if I'm not mistaken. And Lori might correct me on this, but yeah, a much stronger force will be situated in Belarus, where they also have those tactical nuclear weapons stationed. But most importantly, that's only about 100 kilometers from Kiev. So you have this counteroffensive really focused in the south. Now he has these troops stationed, or will soon have reinforced troops stationed only about 100 kilometers from the Ukrainian capital, the seat of power. And while that may not seem like, you could win the war without actually taking Kiev if you want to look at, trying to take the whole country. But if they go in there and they unseat the government and oust Zelensky and the members of the government, it's game over right there. It's like checkmate.
True. And then he'll be accused of doing what we do, regime change.
Mm.
That's what the West will say, which is probably why he has not done that yet. He could have done it long ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you say that, actually, you're making a very good point. What was, the West was sitting here cheering on a guy that has been on the FBI's most wanted list, for international terrorism, Prigozhin. They've hated that guy since he started Wagner.
So they loved him. Then they loved him.
And now for a few days, it's like, hey, he's gonna get rid of Putin. And the guy is a thug. He is a mercenary. He has advocated for basically a scorched earth approach to the special military operation. No, he wanted a full scale scorched earth war, just level everything and end it.
Right.
Kill everything in sight, basically, was what that guy wanted. And the West is like, yeah, get that guy in power, as though he was going to be the guy who was going to replace Putin. I have news for Mr. Prigozhin. Even if he had been successful, if that was actually his objective, was to oust Putin, I've got news for you, man. You would not be the guy sitting in the chair behind the desk. It wouldn't have been him. It would have been somebody else, probably, in my view, somebody handpicked by the CIA. But that's my opinion. And if not that, probably somebody else on the Russian side waiting in the wings who would be there to just claim power and take Prigozhin and say, you stand over there, boy. All
probably
right.
Navalny. That's who they'd like to put in, probably.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been Prigozhin. No.
No way. No way. That guy's a loose cannon.
Yeah.
Nobody wants him having access to the nuclear codes, including the West.
Well, look what he just did. He got upset.
Exactly.
And then turned us, let's go to Moscow right now. And we're going to...
and caused total uproar in the country, uproar around the world, embarrassed President Putin, embarrassed Russia, and caused all of this discord within the armed forces. Putin ain't going to stand for that. And
no, I mean, he proved that he's a tough SOB, but he also proved that you can't trust him, especially with a gun.
Or the nuclear codes.
Exactly. If you can't trust him with what he's got, you think you should give him access to the big button? I don't think so.
I'm honestly surprised that this man and his co-conspirators are not in prison. I am amazed that Putin was willing to give them clemency, amnesty.
Except that it shows, strangely enough, you would think that a leader like Putin would want to make an example of someone like Prigozhin by punishing him.
Right.
But no, I think he did the really wise thing. He knows that Prigozhin is popular with a lot of Russians. He also knows that he needs those Wagner forces. He needs them. And they have performed and they have delivered on the front lines and they have served their country. So I think he's done the wise thing. He's preserved the strength. He's brought them back into the fold. He hasn't pushed them out. And if he takes out Prigozhin, he takes out the leader of that force right off the top, right? He decapitates that, and that strikes a problem with morale within that private fighting force and leaves them in a state of disarray. There's no organization there. I think what he did was masterful. I think he probably sees that, if he had done that, he'd lose all those fighters and he'd have maybe even a ragtag splintering of the soldiers into smaller groups that might cause other problems. Who knows what the consequences of that might have been? What he did, he defused it. He kept them together as a cohesive unit. He moves them all off, gives them all a chance to become integrated into the Russian military.
And there's no more Wagner.
Right.
He's disbanded that group. So
That's
now they have two choices. Well, three, I guess. He gave them the choice to go home.
Right.
If they just want to quit now and go home, he's actually going to let them do that. Or they can fold in to the actual Russian military.
Yep.
Or they can go to Belarus and fuck off over there.
And
No.
the other unintended consequence, which was a positive for Putin, is that this actually exposed people who maybe were not loyal to Putin.
Right.
Because they saw what was going on, and anybody that maybe was disloyal, it bubbled to the surface. And now it's like, oh, that guy over there, oh, he was cheering for the overthrow, right? Oh, okay. So now we know I can't trust him, and I can't trust him, and I can't trust that guy.
Right.
So
right.
That's
one of the conspiracy theories floating around too, is some people say that this whole thing was engineered by Putin as a way to root out the unloyal, the unfaithful. And I personally don't believe that. I don't think that Putin would have engineered such a thing that would cause embarrassment to Russia, that would create an international incident, that would make everyone nervous about what happens to the nuclear weapons. Even NATO quickly put out a statement while all that was going on saying, it wasn't us. We had nothing to do with it. Please don't nuke us. Literally. So everybody was real nervous for those several hours. I mean, we were live on Twitter Spaces. I was there for 17 hours. I'm still tired. I'm still worn out trying to catch up on sleep after that marathon. But there's no way that Putin would have ever brought that kind of dishonor upon his own administration or the Russian Federation. There are other ways to smoke out traitors without doing it so publicly.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that was what actually happened. But you're right.
That wasn't the motivation behind anything.
Right. Yeah. But as an added bonus, now he knows who's loyal and who isn't.
That's right.
I think you're
right.
And
so people in the West, the mainstream media over here, they're still trying to suggest that Putin is now very weak and it's showing cracks in his grip on power. But I don't think so. I think he's come out of this as strong as ever and maybe even stronger, honestly.
I do too. I mean, in his speech today, and it was true what he said, that the people stood with him. The armed forces stood with him, except for these few traitors. The Russian people are with him all the way. Yeah. I don't think it's changed their perceptions of him at all. And like you said, if anything, it's only made them love and respect their leader more. Now, as Americans, we can't relate to that. I'm sure a lot of Canadians can't relate to that, of actually having a leader who has almost 90% support among his own people. And not only that, people trust him. They trust their leader. We don't know what that feels like in the United States. It's been a hell of a long time since we had a
that's why I still stick with
this
idea that the CIA was probably behind some of this in some way, because most other people in a leadership position who had that kind of power, as soon as they saw that convoy coming toward Moscow, if it had been anybody else, I think they probably would have said, take them out. And then it would have given the West everything that they had been hoping for. And they would have started blowing up the Wagner forces, all of the vehicles. They would have been killing their own soldiers. They would have been fighting among themselves. It might have even started a civil war.
That's what they were hoping.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
I mean, this gave NATO, the United States, everything that they could have possibly wished for if Putin had pulled the trigger and had taken them out.
Exactly.
And he didn't do it.
No, he did not. And much to my
Thinking.
surprise, now,
Thinking.
had this been the old Soviet Union, had he been Joseph Stalin, those boys would be in the gulag.
The end of that.
They would have been in front of the firing squad,
Yeah.
right? In no
Mhm.
time flat. So it shows you that once again, Putin has shown incredible restraint. Was pretty humane about the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, compare Putin's response to the way Joe Biden and the Democrats have reacted to J6.
Exactly, man.
What do you mean?
Exactly.
There's a guy in a Chewbacca outfit and he wants in the building? Arrest them all.
And lock them up for the rest of their lives.
That's right.
Yeah. That's
So
what
who's
we
the
would have done.
authoritarian?
Now, who's the authoritarian?
Mhm. It's pretty clear.
You know what Joe Biden would have done. Exactly
Yeah.
what you just said. That's what he
Yeah.
would have done.
Yeah.
But some might say that Putin is being too nice about this. But believe me, if these guys cause any more trouble, he's not going to be so nice.
Yeah. And
He's warned them.
I still think Prigozhin's in a little bit of trouble in the
Right.
long run. Just not immediately, but
Well, it's
sometime,
betrayal.
somewhere down the road,
That
in
was
the not too
total
distant
betrayal.
future. Yes.
And mind you, he and Putin have been friends on and off for
Mhm.
more than 20 years. He used to be Putin's personal chef.
Yep.
And when you're someone's personal chef, you get to overhear a lot of dinner table conversation that's private. So you have to trust whoever's cooking for you a lot, right?
Yeah.
And some people say, another theory floating around is that maybe Prigozhin survived this because he had some blackmail on Putin. Little mutual understanding may have been reached. Who knows? It's possible. It's possible. 20-year friendship, you pick up a lot of
just think
intel.
that Putin is a cool customer. I
He
just think
is.
he's just kept a level head. He looked at it from, an aerial view, got the big picture and said, you know what? The smart thing to do right now is just to defuse it
Mhm.
and just do what he did. That was the brilliance of it all. He diffused it, ended it within a day, and no real bloodshed.
Ended it within hours.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Quickly.
like it was over.
Yeah.
And his power, his military preserved, the country still united. It was the right way to do it, the proper thing to do. He thought it through, and that he did exactly what he needed to do.
Once again, displaying grace under pressure.
Yep.
As only he can. And that, again, proves him a very formidable foe to the West, to the United States, because they want him to be a hothead, right?
Yes.
They want to provoke an angry response from this guy, and he will not be provoked. He will not be stampeded. And he kept his head on straight through this whole thing. He was firm and resolute. Certainly that televised address he gave while all this was unfolding was very no nonsense. He made it clear he would not be tolerating this. And that's what he should do. But at the same time, he's not a leader who displays vengeance.
Just seeing what people are saying in the chat. He is not brilliant, according to Steve Harvey, Putin, but knows much about this world. Boots on the ground said it was because of the length of time that it's taken. We all make mistakes. Yep, that's right, Rick Laurie. What else are we seeing here? Barron says some have theorized that Prigozhin is actually still on board with Putin and that this is all a setup to get the West to lower their guard. And Choosy says, I don't do friends who are Roman brands.
Choosy just gets me every time. He's going to find a way to tie this into the Knights of Malta somehow.
Every time.
I don't know how, but
The viewer neighbor says, what is the United States doing with all of its resources to stop human trafficking, specifically child trafficking? I don't know what the heck that has to do with this subject, but
Pretty
there you
off
go. You're
topic.
on the screen anyway. What else we have going on? Rising Dragon says, according to the National Post on June 25th, I don't know what that's got to do with. I don't know what that is.
yeah, I've heard about that story. That's kind of
It's a
crazy, but that
different
happens
story.
in the
What
U.S. every day. Yeah, I guess this happened up in Canada.
flight diverted after two passengers became drunk and started shouting at others. Well,
Uh-huh.
that sounds like a party to me.
What else is new? We do that every day in America.
That's right. Seize the day. Wasn't there supposed to be another Russian speech tonight, or is that for today?
I think that was the one that
Yeah, we
just
just
occurred
ran it. Yeah,
a couple hours ago.
we just showed it
Yeah.
to you. There you
Yeah,
go.
that was today. That
Yeah.
was today.
Um,
So what do you think happens next, Rick, over in Russia?
steady as she goes, basically. They, I think that they just bring in reinforcements to make sure that any holes that might have been or soft spots that might have been left open, they fill those in to prevent the Ukrainian counteroffensive from gaining any traction, and they just proceed as planned and
Do
do
you
what they're
think
going
that
to
there
do.
will be any retribution against Ukraine? I mean, there's all this speculation now that they're basically 100 kilometers from Kiev. A lot of people are saying, "Look out." Do you think that'll happen?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I can't sit
Nobody
here and
wants
make
to
that
answer that
prediction. I
question.
don't know.
Yeah. Even Scott Ritter didn't want to go there.
Is that right? Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm at least as wise as that, because he knows a lot more than I do. He's the true authority. I'm just
You got to think like Scott Ritter, I
yeah,
mean, we've
just
had him on this show enough times now that I think we have a pretty good read on what he's thinking. We couldn't get him on the show this week because he's obviously besieged with requests from media outlets right now who want to talk to him and presidential candidates. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. called him up immediately, which I think is great. I want a presidential candidate who calls Scott Ritter, picks up the phone when something happens in Russia and he wants to know what the heck just happened. I like that he picks up the phone and calls Scott Ritter. I'd much rather have him call Ritter than General Wesley Clark or some of these warmongering former generals who want more and more war. Scott walks a path of peace. He wants nuclear disarmament, and I consider those good things. And I like that he's advising Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but Bobby had him on his podcast last night, kind of an emergency broadcast. He got Scott on the line and said, explain this. And they talked for about 20 minutes. And last night, Bobby put out a tweet plugging the podcast, asking people to listen to what Scott had to say. And guess what happened, Rick?
Well, you told me what happened. He ended up taking this thing down, right?
He deleted the tweet.
Yeah.
You know why?
Well, I know why, but I'm going to let you say why, because I don't even want to say it because, I have people talk about this from time to time because we have Scott on the program, but I'll comment on it after you explain it again.
Again, how many times do we have to do this? We've had long interviews with Scott on this show where he addressed those phony allegations. And, made it very clear he's not what they say he is. That's the tweet that's been deleted. Kennedy put this out last night, and he's just plugging the interview, right? Now, and of course you see at the bottom, this tweet has been deleted. It was deleted this morning. And it's unfortunate because we all know it's fake. Viewers of this show have heard Scott explain this at length. We did an exclusive interview with Scott a few months ago.
Yep.
We talked for 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours about it. And he took us back in time and explained from 25 years ago when this whole campaign against him started. And it started when he was weapons inspector in Iraq. And this is back in the late 90s. And Scott was saying, look, they don't have any WMDs. The government's lying to you. And what do you know? Especially it ramped up around 2001, 2002, just as we were about to get involved in an invasion of Iraq over these WMDs that didn't exist. Scott was that one credible voice out there telling the truth. And so they did everything they could to discredit this man. You know, they pulled out all the stops. The FBI was stalking him, his entire family. They set him up in a honey trap.
Smear campaign, man. It's all it was. Just a giant
Yep.
smear campaign. And this whole thing, basically, in my view, to entrap him in with these BS pedophilia charges. I thought the whole thing was ridiculous. And you know,
And it's a lie.
the first time we had him on the program, I promoted it, and I'll tell you, I got hammered. People were like, "You can't have that guy on the show. He's a pedophile." And I'd already looked at it, and I was like, I don't care like what they've said about him. I said, first of all, if it was true, he's already paid his debt to society. Secondly, he's an authority. He's an expert, and I want to know what he has to say because it has extreme value, regardless of what charges or things he might have, been convicted of even, right? And third, I don't believe any of it because I looked at the evidence, and that was the very first time that he had appeared on the program. So I made a decision that no matter how much pressure was applied to me from people telling me, you can't have that guy on the show, and then they started sending me, emails and links
copies
and
of his
video, and I'm
mugshot.
like,
They love to
that's
show you
right. And
that.
I'm like, whatever, man. Like, I know, I'm well aware. I've already made the decision. I'm not going to let you scare me or pressure me into making an editorial decision like this with information that I know is really predicated on a giant smear campaign, because he was doing the right thing. He was calling out the fact that there were no WMDs in Iraq, and that was a major issue that was embarrassing to the administration, was embarrassing to the US government, and that's why they came after him. That's why they treated him the way that they did, and it's beyond unjust what they've done to the man. So I'm like, he's coming on the show, and have at it. Like, smear me if you want, but this is the right thing to do, and we're lucky to have him on the show. We're lucky to have him share his expertise, and what he has to say is of extreme value. So I stood my ground and made the decision, and he's been on a few times since then, and I'm grateful every time he gives us even a minute of his time, because I'm just a little guy. This podcast live stream news program is not seen by as many people as some of the larger live streams and podcasts out there. We have an audience, but not as big as Fox
He routinely
News.
goes on shows a lot bigger than this one.
Yes,
But I think he
so-
kind of likes us here at Maverick News, and so he
Yeah.
keeps coming back. And we love Scott.
Yes.
I thank you, Rick, for having the courage to stand your ground, to stand by Scott Ritter when so many others have turned their backs on him, and he's radioactive. He's been radioactive for more than 20 years, and so a lot of public figures, media people, they're afraid to interview him now because, and this is why. What just happened with Bobby Kennedy's tweet is exactly why, because I know from my own experience, every time I tweet about Scott, every time I upload a video, one of our interviews with Scott, I get hammered. All these NAFO trolls and the pro-Ukrainian Nazis and all of these in the CIA bots. A lot of these accounts that post comments are very suspicious. They don't look like they're human You know, there
Mhm.
just aren't that many human, but you'll get swarmed with
Well, I mean,
hundreds,
there were
thousands of
there were
them.
people in the chat tonight, right now. As soon
Yep.
as you mentioned Scott Ritter, a
Here they come.
couple of people mentioning the whole thing, and it's like, yeah, every time. But I know basically what the
time.
truth is, you know,
Yep.
and I'll stand with him any day of the week.
Me
So,
too. Me too.
yeah,
Unless
he's a
unless
good
Scott
guy.
Ritter eats a baby or shoots a dog, I'm not going to turn my back on him. Scott's my friend, and
Yeah.
that's that. And I stand by my friends. But I'm going to tell you the truth, Rick. I am pretty disappointed
Mhm.
in my guy,
Yeah.
Robert Kennedy Jr., for deleting that tweet.
Yeah.
Someone should have warned Bobby, and maybe they didn't. Maybe he didn't know that if you
How could,
tweet
but
that, you're going to get attacked.
man, come on. Like, this is the thing with all these people running for president, though. Like,
Mm.
I'm amazed at how sometimes how little they know,
Right. How could you not know?
how they flip flop on things,
Mm.
how ill prepared they are going into this campaign, how
Yep.
unorganized they've been. Not just like all of them, really, to a large degree.
Yep.
All the challengers.
Every last
Trump's
one
got
of
a
'em.
well-oiled machine. Biden's got the DNC machine behind him. So they've
Mhm.
got it down because they've been through through the process a lot of times.
Mm.
And they've got the money and the organization, and it's a template for them. But all these challenges, you want to be the president of the United States, you better have your act together, man. You better know your subject matter. You better have those issues nailed down. You need an organization. Like, I can't believe
Hmm.
how you you need to know what you're going to say, and you have to
And you have
look
to
ahead.
anticipate what the pushback will be.
Exactly. So
You
you
know?
know what response you're likely to get before you say something
Right.
in that position.
Like just like the Roger Waters thing. You know, he should have known that Roger's controversial before he put out that tweet supporting
Right.
Roger,
Yeah.
knowing he was going to get backlash. And then he had to do the embarrassing thing, which was
Yeah.
to delete the tweet, which doesn't make him look good.
Yeah.
And it looks bad when he throws Roger under the bus like that. And I did not like seeing him throw Scott Ritter under the bus.
Yeah.
I really thought that Bobby would have known better. And surely before he put out that tweet, someone should have told him, if he didn't know, that look, you're going to get swarmed by the NAFO bots. You're going to get swarmed by the CIA people. You know, they're going to try and embarrass you for having anything to do with Scott Ritter. It's just to be expected. All of Scott's friends know this. Bobby
you
should have known that.
So you either just stay away from it altogether, which would
That's right.
really be the wise thing to do.
No.
But if you do run over
No.
there and engage in a conversation like that and you post it, then you need to stand by it, because it
Yes.
makes you look weak,
Mhm.
indecisive, ill-informed,
And easily manipulated.
exactly, and it makes you look cowardly.
Right.
So is
I
that the
agree.
kind of guy you want to be president? Well, I mean, I still like him, but
Mm.
is that what he's going to do when he's the president? Every time somebody applies pressure on some issue, he's afraid that he might not get reelected. So he flip flops and starts deleting stuff and backtracking on things. We can't have somebody like that. That's not true leadership.
That sounds like Donald Trump.
In some respects, yeah.
Let's not forget during the 2016 campaign when Trump was all, I love WikiLeaks.
Yeah,
And then he throws Julian Assange in prison. And then he's asked about it. And he goes, Wiki what? Wiki who? Oh, never heard of him. Don't know anything about him.
They're
Well, you
all
loved them
these
before.
freaking politicians. I mean,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
I understand being pragmatic. I understand how you pick and choose your issues, but once you commit,
Then you're
like,
committed.
you're committed, and
Yep.
you don't flip flop, you don't delete, because it makes you look even worse.
Especially a good man, an honest man like Scott Ritter.
Yeah.
You know, Scott will not lie to you. That's why I love him. Scott has never once lied to the American people, and he's never lied to me. And what he said to Bobby in that interview, he wasn't kidding. He wasn't lying. And as usual, he's correct. Scott has a way of being right on the money.
Scott
correct.
Ritter for president.
I wish he could run. And you know, he would. I mean, I think that Scott probably would have run for US Senate or Congress or maybe even president had it not been for this honey trap that they ensnared him in 20 years ago, which has now ruined his chances of ever holding elected office. But
I don't know. I don't know,
want to
man.
see
I
him-
mean, you want to talk about indiscretion and inappropriate behavior. Look at what Biden did with Tara Reid. Look
There
at
you go.
look at all the charges against various candidates from
Mhm. Donald
you know,
Trump.
that's right. I mean,
How many women have sued him, right?
so I mean, come on.
Hmm.
It seems
And
to me like the it's like a prerequisite to getting elected is to be a jerk,
or a coward,
coward. Yeah.
right? And you know, Bobby's no coward. You know, and I know it takes guts to get up there and say what he said in his speech in Boston, in every speech that he gives. I mean, he's declared war on the deep state, at least verbally. But what bothers me and concerns me is when he has a guy like Scott Ritter on his show, right? And then backs away from it, deletes that tweet, and gives in, caves when he's under pressure. How are you supposed to fight the deep state when it's the deep state that's gone after Scott Ritter? And you need to stand by that man, Bobby Kennedy, if you're out there listening. Scott Ritter never hurt anybody. Scott Ritter hasn't done one thing wrong. And what he did do wrong in that chat room 20 years ago is a matter between him and his wife, period. It's none of our business. And I want to say something to all of our Maverick viewers out there who might still believe this big lie, because there's a huge propaganda campaign out there. I can't blame you if you fell for it, if you got snookered, if you fell for that, because obviously pedophilia is bad. We oppose it. We're not defending it. What I'm telling you is, if you missed the first time we talked about this with Scott Ritter, if maybe you missed the second time we talked about this with Scott Ritter, or the third time, if you have missed that whole story somehow, I'm here to tell you folks that there were no underage girls ever, ever, ever involved.
And
Ever.
to
It
get
was an
into that chat
undercover
room,
cop, a male adult cop, entrapping him in a chat room. How many times do we have to say this?
well,
How
to
many
get
times does
into the
Scott
chat
have to
room,
say
you
it?
had to
Verify your
confirm,
age.
verify your age. So anybody in there was supposed to be verified as an adult.
And
So
one of the two parties was lying about their age, and it wasn't Scott.
right,
Mhm.
and it was an adult.
It was an adult, so they weren't really lying. They were over 18.
And
Scott
so
never
the
laid a
whole-
hand on any underage girls, period.
That's it. So
That's it. They lie about him. So please pull your head out
anyway,
if you believe that crap anyway.
enough talk about it, because it's not even worth.
Well,
I
it
mean,
is.
I don't even want to talk about it, because it just
No.
gives more, attention to something that we've already
Yeah.
addressed. We know it's not true. And
Agreed.
it's just unfortunate that Mr.
Well, I'll tell
Kennedy.
you what I will do. I'll tell you what I will do.
Yeah.
All of those interviews that we did with Scott about this in the past, they were posted to my YouTube channel. And I edited them so that we just got right to the point and right to the question instead of the whole 3 hours. Most people aren't going to sit through 3 hours. So I got right to the meat of it, and I posted those videos. But as you well know, my old YouTube channel recently got banned, and I lost all those videos in the archives. So I'm so darn mad about this. I'm going to find those videos tonight. I'm going to upload them again. And if you're subscribed to me on Rumble or on my new YouTube channel, Strange Bedfellows Podcast here on YouTube, if you were subscribed to me before, you'll have to resubscribe. This is a new channel. I'm going to upload those tonight. So they will be up. And if you still think that Scott Ritter ever hurt a child, I encourage you to please watch those videos, share them, tell your friends that he is not guilty of those charges. I think that those videos need to come back. Obviously, it has to be said, has to be explained yet again. And I'm going to make darn sure that Bobby Kennedy gets a copy of those as well, so that if he has not yet heard Scott's side of the story, that he will.
Sure.
And I encourage people, while you still can, hurry up and go listen to that podcast. Bobby deleted the tweet, but he has not taken down his podcast, the actual interview with Scott Ritter. So if you're interested in Scott's take on what just happened in Russia, you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all these various platforms. At least for now, it's still up. Now that could change. It may disappear, but it's up still right now if you want to go listen. And it was really good. It was great.
And Yvonne wants to know what's happened to Fred the freedom fish. Fred is alive and well, and I was going to put him on the show
But I'm here
tonight,
today.
but Laurie's here, and actually, what was going on is I left the light on in Fred's aquatic country overnight, and he was hiding down behind the freedom truck. So I thought, he's probably needs sleep. So I turned the light out, and I'm not making him work tonight. But he's over there. He's alive. He looked a little sleepy, so I turned out the
Oh,
light, and I thought we'll give him a little shut eye.
hard to sleep with a big bright light shining on you.
It is.
Oh.
I try to be super nice to him because it's a big LED light on the canopy of the aquarium. And I thought, who the hell wants to live under the blazing? I mean, we saw what happened yesterday with the UV radiation from the climate change sun and the effect it's
See what
having on
that did to your
canines,
poor
turning them
dog?
vicious, right?
Yeah, Cosmo flipped out. Climate change made him go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, he
Oh,
went
that was
really
hilarious.
nuts. He really went really nuts and stole another sock today. Took
What's
that
wrong
into
with
the
that
kitchen.
boy?
I don't know.
What's wrong with that dog?
Yeah,
He wasn't always like this.
yeah, he was.
Oh, was he? I see. He's always been a little crazy. But all animals are a little crazy. I just don't want him
Yeah.
to bite your arm off and you come back to work with a bloody stump where your hand used to be.
Yeah, no, he was that was just him playing.
Yeah, that's play.
Yeah.
He thinks you're a big giant chew toy.
Yes, he does. It's a bit of a problem.
Well, my cats think I'm a big chew toy too, but thankfully their teeth are a lot smaller than Cosmo's because they put the hurt on me sometimes.
Yeah. So, what else are we talking about tonight?
Well, speaking of RFK Jr., I brought a little video you guys might want to see of a town hall meeting that he did in New Hampshire a few days back. You probably didn't get to see it if you live in Canada because it was broadcast only on a local station there, WMUR TV. And they had him in for an hour. And, they asked him about some policy things that you probably have not heard him talk about yet. And it was really good. So I wanted to bring you a little excerpt from this town hall meeting with Bobby Kennedy. Obviously, we can't play the whole thing because it was like an hour and a half. But I wanted to show you a little bit of this and see what you think about his answer to this question.
Karen, thank you for taking my question. Our world is really a mess. Our country is a mess. People are angry and hurting each other. And so my question to you is, unite us as Americans.
The question is, how would I unite people and sort of end the polarization? My dad had faced the same thing when he ran for president against the sitting president of his own party, the same as I'm doing, in 1968. And my father and he succeeded in uniting the country. The day that he died, he won the most rural state in our country, South Dakota, and the most urban state, California. And he had succeeded in bridging that gap. And this was at a time that was almost as polarized as we are today because of the Vietnam War, civil rights, our cities were burning. The National Guard was federalized and was shooting students on campuses. So it was really a very, very hard time in our history and nearly as much polarization. My father did this by telling the truth to people, and he was he was running at a time when he decided to run, he was running for moral reason. Because of the Vietnam War, he did not believe that he didn't want to run. He didn't think he could win. He was going to sit it out, but he worried that somebody would put a microphone in his face and say, "Are you for Eugene McCarthy?" Who he did not like, who he saw was in the tank with the insurance companies, or Lyndon Johnson, who he couldn't support because of the war, or Richard Nixon. And he couldn't support any of them. And so he felt like the only thing he could do that was honest and forthright was to run himself, even though he had no chance to win. He'd run his brother's campaign 8 years before. And but then they had the unions on their side. They had the big city mayors. They had the liberal newspapers like the New York Times. All of those were against my father. The only unions he had was the UAW and the Cesar Chavez United Farm Workers. And all the people who had been with him when he ran the first time and had gone into the new frontier were now working for Johnson. So he was really alone when he decided to run. And it freed him to tell the truth to people. So when he went to Creighton University in Indiana, and the students say, "Are you going to preserve our draft deferments?" McCarthy said, "Yeah." He said, "No, I'm not, because 45% of the paratroopers in Vietnam are Black. And it's unfair. I can get my kids into college and get the deferment. And it's unfair and wrong in our country that our wars are being fought by Black kids who can't get to buy that deferment." And he was booed. And he said, "How does that sit with your Catholic values?" And he engaged him in that discussion. In the end, he was given a standing ovation when he went to the Indiana Medical School. The students asked him, "Who's going to pay for your health care?" And he said, "You are." And they booed him. By the end of that conversation, they were applauding him. When he went to Watts, which was on fire, he talked to them about the importance of abiding by the law, which was not a popular thing, in those communities. When he went to the University of Alabama, which he had forcibly integrated 5 years before by federalizing the National Guard, sending 18,000 troops down there, he talked about civil rights. He was given a standing ovation. When I was with him when he died in Los Angeles, and we brought him back to New York to wake him at St. Patrick's Cathedral, and then we took him on this ride from Penn Station in Manhattan to Union Station in Washington, D.C. It was supposed to be a 2.5-hour ride. It was 7.5 hours because there were 2.5 million people on that train track, and they were the entire cross-section of the American experience. When we went through the urban train stations that crawled through at 2 miles an hour, through Newark, Trenton, Wilmington, Baltimore, there were Black faces, tens of thousands of them, singing the Battle Hymn of the Republic. In the countryside, there were whites, there were Catholics, there were rabbis, there were priests. I remember 7 nuns standing in the back of a pickup truck right outside of Wilmington, waving their rosaries at us when I passed. Little leaguers standing at attention, Boy Scouts, and it was the cross section of the American experience. And I remember 4 years later reading. I was going to college by then. And I was reading demographic data from that election from 1972. Where George McGovern had run, who was aligned with my father on every issue. And what this data showed is that those white people who had lined that track to say goodbye to my dad and who had supported him in the election, 4 years later were not supporting George McGovern, who was aligned with my dad on everything. Instead, they were supporting George Wallace, who was antithetical to everything my father believed in. He was a racist, a bigot, a segregationist. And it occurred to me then, and it has struck me many times since, that every nation, like every individual, has a darker side and a lighter side, and that the easiest thing for a politician to do is to appeal to our bigotry and our hatred and our anger and our greed and xenophobia and tribalism. And that my father tried to do something different, which is to appeal to our populist impulses and instincts, do it by finding our better natures, by getting us to step outside of our own narrow self-interest, to transcend that and to see ourselves as part of a larger community, part of this kind of noble experiment in, the American experiment in self-governance, and to help us find a hero in each of us and take the risks that it takes to stand up for something, for a community that may not look all like you, and to avoid the seduction of the notion that we can advance ourselves as a people by leaving our poor brothers and sisters behind. And he was able to do that, and he did it successfully.
Oh, did we lose Kennedy? Where'd he go?
Oops, hang on a second here. What happened?
I
The
think we're in
community.
the wrong window.
There we
And,
go. Yes,
I had that
sir.
queued up for
ways
later.
by focusing not on
Oh, I see.
the issues that keep us apart, but
There you go.
on the values that unite us, that we have in common. To run a campaign that focuses on those values and focuses on solutions that are going to work for everybody, rather than the narrow tribalistic solutions that have been part of the debate so far. And that's why I don't take the easy, democratic answer on gun control, because it hasn't worked so far. It just hasn't worked. It's just divided us. But what's the thing we have in common? We all want to protect our children. So let's figure out a way to do that that doesn't impede on somebody's deeply held values, other Americans' deeply held values. And if we start trusting each other again, maybe ultimately we can get gun control, sensible, common sense gun control through consensus, other than forcing it down people's throats. So that's what I hope to do with my campaign.
Okay.
That's better.
What do you think?
I hope you guys were able to, well, you know me, I'm pro Second Amendment all the way. And I always cringe when I hear Democrats talk about common sense gun control, because there's really no such thing. In my opinion, any restrictions on the Second Amendment are an infringement. And I'm hardcore about that. He's not going to convince me. But we've brought him closer to our libertarian position or our conservative position on the Second Amendment. He used to be for all kinds of gun control. And now he says, as a presidential candidate, that even though he's for gun control personally himself, he has no intent of infringing on our rights or taking our guns. He respects the entire Constitution, the entire Bill of Rights, every amendment, including number 2. So that's a position I'm okay with. As long as you just don't infringe, we're good, buddy. And you can have your own personal feelings about gun control. And there's something I should point out, too. The first federal gun control act that was ever passed in the United States was passed in 1968. The Gun Control Act of 1968 was passed by Lyndon Johnson and that Congress right after the murder of his father. And his father's murder is the reason that we got the first National Gun Control Act. There was his father's murder in June of 68. 2 months prior to that, Dr. King was killed in Memphis in April. So, and then a year before that, you might recall the UT Tower shootings at the University of Texas at Austin, where a crazed gunman climbed up a big tower with a shotgun and killed 15 students. That was one of our first big mass shootings in the United States. We'd never seen anything like it before, and it terrified everyone. And that was when, for the first time, we really started to have a national conversation about guns. And of course, everyone's emotional response was to blame the gun instead of the crazy guy who climbed the tower and shot all those people, or the person who shot MLK, or the person who shot RFK. Everyone's reaction was, well, we have to do something about guns. And that's been the Democrats' response ever since. But as Bobby said in that town hall the other night, the simple Democrat position of taking away guns is not the answer. It's not the problem. And as he pointed out, we've had guns in this country since the beginning of the country. And there are good reasons why the Second Amendment is in our Constitution. He does understand that. At least now he does. So I hope that he doesn't try to back up off of that as president and start putting some common sense gun control measures out there, because that would be a deal breaker for me and for a lot of voters. I hope he's not just telling us what he thinks we want to hear. He better mean it.
Well, his track record on flip-flopping hasn't been very good this week.
True that. Or last week, or the week before that. It seems he's still susceptible to pressure and manipulation.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this issue, it's not going to be solved that easily.
No, we've been fighting about it in the States for, well, almost 60 years now, since the Gun Control Act of 1968. And it's something that we still have not resolved, but at least Bobby is the only politician or candidate for president that I've ever heard who's actually pointing at psychotropic medications as having a role in these mass shootings that we're seeing. I mean, I'm pro Second Amendment, but I also do not like seeing this outburst of crazy gun violence in our country. It's out of control. It must be stopped. But the answer is not taking away guns. That only takes guns away from innocent people who are then left defenseless to criminals. Criminals don't obey gun control laws, guys. But, law-abiding citizens would be giving up their guns, leaving them vulnerable to violence against them. So,
that's right.
I still believe that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And I've seen it happen time and time again. That's how you stop them. And to address the larger problem that we have here in the U.S., I truly believe that there's a medication factor that no one wants to talk about, because all of these politicians and the press are beholden to big pharma.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that recent conversation you had with Phil Hartman's brother about his death, his murder by his wife, who was on Zoloft.
Yep.
Lost her mind. And then she shot her husband and shot herself. And, even when you read the inserts of these drugs that are supposed to keep you calm, if you read the fine print, you see a lot of, this may cause suicidal ideations. This may cause homicidal thoughts. This stuff can cause you to flip out.
Yeah, and I'm flipping out because Gina's pointing out that people are not hitting the like button tonight.
Oh, no.
So hit the like button, folks. Hit the like button. Come on.
Help us out here.
Yeah,
everybody's
like
against
button.
us at YouTube. We got the algorithm fighting us. We got the censors fighting us.
If you want to drive them crazy at YouTube, just tell them how much you like the channel.
There you go.
Like, share.
It's one of the few ways that we can still fight back against the algorithmic suppression of our channel. Yeah. When you like a video or you comment or share it, that's something that the YouTube algorithm kind of takes note of.
Yeah.
So please help us out with a like.
That's right, Mario. Just hit it. Just hit
do
it.
Just do it. Do it, man. So yeah, I still support Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I still think he's the best man for the job. No candidate is perfect. That's for sure. I still say he's a lot better than the other options that we have. And he's learning his way. And, I hope that
See how the campaign goes.
I hope he listens to the backlash when he does do something that, like he did today, deleting that tweet with Scott Ritter. I hope he'll listen to people also who support Scott Ritter, not just the ones attacking him, but those of us who support him and adjust course correctly. I was kind of hoping to see Scott Ritter as his Secretary of Defense, maybe, or national security, or just an advisor to a Kennedy administration. That would sure make me feel a lot better about our foreign policy if I knew that a guy like Scott Ritter was serving the president.
Well, that's the question to ask. Like, who would actually be in his administration?
Mhm.
That's the other, that's
the
the thing.
litmus test.
Yes, and
Mhm.
nobody even really asks those kinds of questions
Mm.
of these candidates. It's like, I like that
Mhm.
guy, but even Trump, when he got elected,
Oh yeah,
it was
remember?
like he didn't have anybody sitting on the bench. He had to go and fill those positions with people from the swamp.
Yep, and he did.
Yeah.
He did. And yet, no one. You're right, Rick. Journalists were not asking about that during the campaign.
Mhm.
Usually, they don't ask those questions until after the guy wins the election.
Yeah.
Then they start asking, "Who would you put in your cabinet?"
Mhm.
And the same thing happened with Obama. Obama sold us a bill of goods to get elected. And as
Oh,
soon as he got
speaking of
elected,
yeah,
who did he
just
pack his cabinet with?
and just a quick mention, that reminds me, because Obama's campaign slogan was one word, hope,
Hope.
which is not a plan, by the way, but it was hope. You know who else is using hope as a campaign slogan? Olivia Chow, mayoral candidate in Toronto. And tonight is election day / night in Toronto, where
Right.
they're having a by-election. So I'm keeping an eye on it. The polls are still open. And we will bring you election results later on in the evening.
What time do the
So-
polls close up there?
I think probably 8 o'clock,
Eastern
maybe
time?
9. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
8 or 9 o'clock they'll close, and then we should have results pretty quickly after that. For
You think so? You don't think this is going to be a close race? Is Olivia Chow clearly in the lead?
According to the polls, I think it's probably about a 3-way race. Depends on how the vote gets split. She's the front runner and seems to have a pretty substantial lead in the polls. So if you're believing the polls, she's probably the person. We'll see. Ontario's premier, Doug Ford, doesn't like her. He's advised people not to vote for her. The other strange thing, and this is sort of a sidebar, there used to be laws about covering election night or day. In the past, if you were on television or radio, you were not allowed to even mention the names of candidates when the polls are open. There were laws against it because they
You
didn't
couldn't
want
even
people to
say
be
their
influenced.
names, huh?
No, you couldn't even talk about them. You could say that there was an
Wow.
election on, but if you were doing a new broadcast, like on the news or anything, you couldn't mention their names.
Interesting.
It was because they didn't want people influenced, right? And a lot of those regulations, those laws were put into place for national elections because in Canada, of course, we have multiple time zones. And so they would have like blackout periods so that, they just don't want people influenced by media when they're going to the polls. You couldn't run advertising on election day, things like that. But with social media, people are out there just posting all kinds of stuff today, right? Around that
Yeah.
election and all other
Yeah.
elections. So all of that, those old rules have kind of gone out the window.
They don't really apply. We had similar, not that we couldn't talk about the candidates or report on them on election day, but our rules have changed through the years as, our media was caught a few times in the past calling elections too early. Because polls were still open out on the West Coast.
Right.
And, they were calling the election before the polls were even closed, which of course would influence voters on the West Coast not to go vote because what's the point? Right. The guy already won. Right. And that goes all the way back to 1980 when Ronald Reagan won in a landslide.
Same issue here in Canada.
But, we weren't restricted from talking about the candidates. I guess that's where your law is a little different from ours, but we
It has
can't make
been,
any
yeah.
projections until after the polls have closed across the country now,
Yeah.
which is
I
good.
when I was running a college, helping to run a college radio station, I was the public affairs director back in those days. And so I organized all the election coverage one year. And so I had to select people to, for all the different positions for election night coverage. The guy who was anchoring the broadcast, he um, started to blurt out names. We went on the air before the polls closed, and I had to reach over and actually put my hand over his mouth.
No way.
I did, yeah. I was afraid that the college radio station was going to be reprimanded. Anyway, we didn't get into it.
Well, at least you didn't pull the plug and just take him off the air.
We were just a bunch of kids, just doing our best.
Yeah, that's it. Those are the good old days. I'll tell you a funny screw up story from my youth. My first year, I was as a journalist, I was anchoring the afternoon news on a radio station here in Oklahoma. And this is how old I am, folks. This was back during the Iran-Contra scandal. Yeah, I'm that old. I remember it well, reported on it every day. And you remember Oliver North, right, who played a key role in that scandal. Some local group sent me a press release saying that Oliver North was coming to Oklahoma City and he was going to give a speech, which would have been very newsworthy at the time. The whole world was watching Oliver North and his congressional testimony and this and that. So I made the mistake of going on the air and announcing that Oliver North is coming to town to give a speech before I had checked it out to make sure it was legit. Oops. Live and learn, because as it turned out, that was fake news. And our station was embarrassed. I embarrassed us by going with that story before I'd checked it out. So it taught me a valuable lesson. Don't say anything until you're damn sure that a press release is legit. Just because it's a press release doesn't mean it's true. And no,
That's right.
Oliver North was not coming to Oklahoma City to give a speech. It's all bullshit. So, sometimes we do some fake news without realizing it, right? Or it's an honest mistake.
Yes.
Not every journalist is out to deceive you. Sometimes we just goof. And I goofed that time.
What is this you have on the screen? Do you need to bring something up on the screen? Is that another story?
Yeah.
What is
I
that?
wanted to show you. That's my latest Twitter poll.
Oh,
And it's still open if you guys want to vote. Rick and I, we've been talking about doing a Twitter space together, kind of a Twitter space version of Maverick News. I don't know if you guys like Twitter spaces, but I do them a lot. I host Twitter spaces pretty often, and they've been pretty popular. A lot of people listen to Twitter spaces. So we just, you just kind of pick a topic and go. And I like it because it's sort of like the call-in portion of the show here, where we take phone calls and hear what's on people's minds. But on Twitter spaces, there's no charge to use the phone. We don't have to pay to use the phone. You don't have to pay. All you have to do is get on Twitter. The only thing is, folks, if you'd like to participate in these Twitter spaces, and this causes some confusion sometimes, to be able to speak, you have to use the Twitter app on your phone. It doesn't work on a laptop or a PC. You can listen, but you can't speak. So if you'd like to be involved in the conversation and you'd like to speak at the space, be sure to use your phone and not your PC, because that's something Twitter just needs to fix. They haven't fixed it yet, that you can't speak on Twitter spaces on your PC. So I asked a question. I said, what topics should we cover on our next Twitter space? And I threw a few ideas out there. Twitter only gives you 4 options on these polls. So I asked, do you want to talk about the Russia coup attempt, or RFK Jr., or Julian Assange, or other? If people had other ideas, they could drop a comment. And wow, look at that. Julian Assange wins by a mile. 43.5% want us to talk about the Assange case, which is coming to a head right now. And I think that's why so many people want us to talk about it. His extradition is imminent any moment now. He has pretty much exhausted every opportunity for appeal. As we expected, the British courts and the High Court don't want to hear his appeal, and he's been denied time and time again. So it looks inevitable that any minute now they're going to send him over here to the United States. And we know that that is probably a death sentence for Julian. I honestly don't think he will survive. I think he will be Epsteined. If I can just be honest, I think they're going to Epstein him before he ever sees the inside of a courtroom. Even if he does get to trial, it probably won't be a fair trial, because in the Eastern District of Virginia, no national security case has ever been won by the accused. The government always wins. It's like playing craps in a casino. The house always wins. And I just don't see that Julian will get a fair trial. And who knows, he might even end his own life rather than go through that, or face prison in the United States where he will be tortured and treated less than human. So Julian's birthday is coming up, July 3rd. That might be a good time to schedule a space, or shortly before that, because wouldn't it be just like the US government to extradite the guy on his birthday? I honestly expect them to do that. And of course, that's going to separate him from his wife, Stella, and their children, who come to visit him all the time at Belmarsh Prison. But they live in the UK. I don't know if they're going to relocate to the US. I would fear for their safety in the United States. I honestly don't know if his wife and kids would be safe living here. So looks like RFK Jr. was a close second in the poll. And to my surprise, the Russia situation came in pretty distant third. What is that? It's a bird.
This is Leo.
It's a bird. It's a
He's-
plane.
He saved a life today.
Aw.
He was asking me to find this, so I finally found the video. He's asking me to run this.
Oh, he saved a bird. Thank
Okay,
you,
so
Leo.
just check this out.
Just heard a great big thump at my window, and this hawk flew into my window. Didn't break the window. Shaw, it's alive. It's up. It's
Poor
up.
baby.
But he was knocked out for about a minute, still breathing here on my front porch. I think he might have
Aw.
broke his wing. Maybe. This is a beautiful bird. Look at the talons. Just a baby. Does anybody know anybody bird sanctuary or something?
I'm gonna try your wildlife and my
There used
Hopefully
to be
he's
a
all right.
bird
Look at my
rescue
window.
operation
It's black.
not far from me here. I don't know if they're still in operation or not. Poor guy.
Okay, so he's alive. He's just stunned for a minute. Hopefully he didn't break a wing. Yeah, beautiful bird. It was just, I thought it was dead. It was still breathing. I came out here for a second. I thought, I don't know who to call. Well, you're going to get some free food around here, bird. My wife loves animals.
What do you feed
Beautiful
a
bird.
What do you
Heard a
feed
big
hawk?
thump. I think my wife off the couch. Somebody throw something at one of our windows. It came out on the front porch. I'm looking. So,
You feed him some hawk chow.
if anybody knows any bird enthusiasts where we could put this bird,
Don't show this video to any woke neoliberals, or they'll just blame it
Beautiful
on climate
bird.
change.
Hopefully he's all right. I'm staying out here because there's neighborhood cats that'll be all over this one in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Looks like a broken wing.
It's been raining here for the last couple of days. Big storm last night around here. No wonder he's disoriented.
Hopefully he's all right. Can you mend the broken wing? I don't know. I've never broken my wing.
It looks like it's all dislocated. It's like he has his wing out to the side. What do you do with a
But the
hawk?
talons on this thing, wow.
You should just make him a pet. Teach him how to, do all the flying around.
Chicken
trick
hawk,
stuff.
I think. If I do remember. Call Wings. Is that a real place? Call Wings? This ain't the first time a bird flew into my glass. I had to replace it one time. It broke a pane upstairs. So Wings is a real place? Okay. We're going to call it. I got to go. I got to make some calls.
Okay. So I know Leo also had a couple of short follow-up. Yeah. Okay. 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 So they're calling Erie Wildlife Rescue. And here's a follow-up video. Okay. Way to go there, Leo, saving the bird. You got to get him some hawk chow. Got to get him some hawk chow. We got any audio on this one? What's going on here?
This bird.
There we go.
And get some updates on this bird.
Okay.
Hopefully, if they have to put the bird down, I'll take the bird home and we'll build a big bird box for him.
Yeah, get one of those big glove
Big
things
cage.
and teach him how to fly around
Live
and
his life
come
out.
back to you and stuff. I don't know how to do that. I don't know what prevents them from flying away. I guess because they get used to getting fed.
All I got for seeds are pot seeds, and I don't think he wants to eat pot seeds. This guy likes to eat meat. He's a meat eater.
Yeah, don't let the cats get near him or he'll eat the cats.
Stay tuned.
Okay. What happened there, Leo? What happened with just tell me in the chat. Is he going to be okay? Like, what's the deal? And he flew away. Did he fly away? I don't know. I'll wait for Leo to respond in the chat. Anyway, you're still there, Lori.
I am here. Poor baby.
Yeah.
Maybe it's climate change.
Well,
Made
that's
the
what I
bird
was-
flip out. No,
Yeah.
they fly into glass all the time. That's what they do. He's just trying to get in the house. Like, hey, it's raining out here. Let me in. Boom. Flew right into the glass. Hate it when that happens. Poor thing.
Yeah.
Beautiful hawk.
Yeah.
Wow. I think Leo's got himself a new pet. What's he going to do with it? I mean, I guess get him fixed.
I'm just waiting
up
for him
and-
to respond in the chat. Leo, did you have to keep the bird or did you get what happened?
After I jump off, I got to leave at 8:00 for another interview. But maybe Leo can hop on and tell you the story.
Oh, he says there's more video. Yeah, there is another video. So
Got one more?
got one more. Here we go. Great ending to a great story. He says here. Okay, so here we
Oh,
go.
cool.
We're gonna find out what happened. One more video.
Yeah,
The saga of the hawk.
he's back.
And you know why?
This is
So his wings
news.
are flapping. I don't think it's a broken wing.
That's good.
Yep, he wants out. Okay, how do you
Yeah,
open this,
some-
babe?
He's rejuvenated. He just needed a little rest and a little hawk chow.
He wants freedom. It's freedom bird. Freedom hawk.
Born free.
It's flapping its wings. I don't think the wings are broken.
Good.
Stop sticking your hand
He's scared
We're
to
gonna
come
see.
out.
Yeah, I dare you to reach in there.
Mm-mm. Not if
There we
you
go.
go. There you go.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's gone.
Bye-bye.
Way to go, man.
USS Kitty Hawk. It wasn't broken wings.
Awesome.
Fly, bird, fly. What an awesome video.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Just awesome.
I love it.
There's your update on Kitty Hawk or Tony Hawk, whatever hawk you want to call it.
How about
love it.
Hubert?
Hubert
So it just
Hawk.
needed a rest. Somebody on my Facebook Live said it probably just needs a rest. It's done. But put it in the cage for about 20 minutes. Was eyeing it. He started flapping his wings. I knew it wasn't a broken wing. And as you just seen in the beginning of this video, Tony Hawk, Kitty Hawk, whatever hawk you want to call it, just flew out of the cage and flew away.
I
Beautiful
love
bird.
it. Yeah.
Good work, Leo.
Very cool, man. The
Yeah.
poor hawk. That was probably a very confusing 20 minutes for the bird. It's like, why'd you put me in this box? Let me out. Let me
Yeah.
out. I don't like captivity. You know,
Here, you know
speaking of
what?
critters.
He's already been knighted, but I'm knighting Leo again.
Yeah,
Here
he
we go.
deserves it.
We, the Maverick family, do hereby dub thee an official Maverick Knight, freedom fighter extraordinaire. May your courage and devotion to freedom and truth become a shining example to the people of our world and the Maverick universe. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Way to go, Leo. I had an unexpected critter visitor last night.
Uh-oh.
I did. It was a nice evening, and I've got one of those you've probably seen them, these screens that you can attach to your door if you don't have a screen door, keeps the bugs out.
Yeah.
It's a nice night, so I had my door open and my little screen on there, and through the screen walks in a possum.
Oh, I hate those things.
Oh, I love them.
I hate possums.
Really? Why do you hate possums?
They scare the living crap out of me because a couple of them have come up on my deck in the middle of the night. And I open the door and turn on the light, and then the light just shines in
Shines in
those
their
pink
eyes.
eyes, and it's like they're like
Yeah.
straight out of hell. And I'm like, oh my God. And then it's like I just want to take something and bludgeon them to death because they
don't do
scared
that.
me.
No, don't do that. Don't kill the possums.
I went to
Possums are
take
sweet.
the recycling bins out one night, and there was a possum in one of the bins, and it was like he
Mm.
jumped out at me, and I was like, "Holy crap!" And he was like, he didn't actually jump, but like his head popped up, and I was like, "Possum thing and the evil hell possum in my oh my God, I hate those
Hell
things.
possum.
They're like huge, giant, pink-eyed rats."
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing it wasn't a raccoon. Now, raccoons are evil. Yeah, they'll mess you up. But possums, they're actually really sweet. They won't harm you or your pets. Matter of fact, this one came right in the house, went straight to the cat's food bowl, helped himself, and then tipped on out the door. We frequently get possums down here where I live in Oklahoma, and not the first possum that's let himself into my house or hung out in the tree. We had a mama possum who had like 5 or 6 little baby possums. It was so cute. And she was nursing her babies out in my backyard. But this possum just walked right in. And, my cats, they're not scared of him. They don't try to start a fight with a possum. That wouldn't be a good idea, but they're cool with it. The cats saw the
Okay.
possum walk in and eat their food, and they're like, okay, hey, possum. And when he left, they're like, bye, possum.
Well, they still creep me out.
But they are creepy looking. They look a lot scarier than they really are. They won't hurt you as long as you don't try to hurt them. But they ain't scared of people, and they ain't scared of cats. They'll just walk right in your house.
Yeah.
I have a picture. I can't show it to you because I don't have it handy, but I have this great picture from a couple of years back where a possum came in and climbed up somehow on the top of a door frame. And I got a picture of it clinging to the top of the door frame. And when I snapped the picture, the flash made his eyes glow. So he looked really scary and demonic.
You know what else hangs upside down? Vampires and bats.
Bats.
I
Oh,
freaking
yeah.
hate those things too.
Woo! I lived in Austin, Texas for 25 years, which is the bat capital of the Southwest. Might even be the bat capital of the world. We've got millions and millions of those Mexican free-tailed bats, and they hang out under the Congress Avenue Bridge, which is a tourist attraction. People come from all across the world to visit Austin, and at sunset every night in the spring and summer months, people gather by the Congress Avenue Bridge downtown and wait for the sun to set. And when it does, millions of these bats come flying up under the bridge, and there's so many of them that the sky will turn dark. You would think it's night outside. There's that many of them. It's really cool. It's pretty cool. But, in the summertime down in Austin, there are bats everywhere. You can be out at night and you look up at any light pole and there's like hundreds of bats flying around. So it's a little creepy if you don't like bats. But the nice thing about all those bats is we don't have a mosquito problem. They eat all the mosquitoes. So that's kind of nice. They
Well,
serve a
around
useful
here we have a
purpose.
crow problem.
Oh,
This is sort of like the crow capital of Canada.
really?
Yeah, I haven't really thought much about it. It's particularly pronounced in the fall.
Hmm.
Here's a little bit of video just to illustrate what I'm talking
Is
about.
this at your house?
Could be
Could be.
on any fall evening. Yeah.
Wow.
Um,
Never come face to face with a crow before.
oh no. Oh,
No.
we've got lots here.
Oh my, you sure do.
Yeah, it can
Look
be
at
even
that.
worse than that.
Goodness. That is a lot of crows.
Yeah.
Where are they going? To warmer
They spend the days out in farmers' fields eating, and then at night they fly into the actual city to seek shelter in the trees
right?
and where it's a
Wow.
little bit warmer.
Look at that. That is incredible.
Yeah. They don't really bother me. Some people don't like it.
Unless they poop on you.
Yeah, where they gather, there can be a problem with that, but it's not
I
as
would
bad
think
as you
so.
might think. Look at how thick they get, though.
Yeah, they turn your sky dark.
They do. And I'll tell you this,
Wow.
crows are extremely intelligent.
Yeah, they are. They're very smart birds.
They are. But
Speaking of exotic birds of prey, I was going to tell Leo this if he's listening. Robert Kennedy Jr. is a master falconer. He's been working with those big birds all of his life, and he can do the trick, like you were saying with the glove, and
right.
the bird will come back to you. And he has done championship competitions with his birds. He's got like a whole cadre of birds, wild birds of prey that he keeps.
I can get birds to come to me too. I can get crows to come. When I was working
Really?
when I used to work for mainstream media for CTV, I
Yeah.
used to have to do stories about the crows. So you know what I used to do?
What'd you do?
They were smart, right? So they wouldn't want to come real close to you. So during the day, instead of chasing the crows around the county, I got smart. So what I did is I went down the street, went to McDonald's, bought some French fries. And then I wait till garbage day to get my footage. And I just threw some French fries out in front of the garbage. Then I went back in my house and set up the
Get the
camera
camera.
inside to shoot through the window. And they'd all get a huge flock of crows all over those French fries, man.
Oh yeah,
As soon as I walked away, give it just a couple of minutes because they'd sit up on the rooftops on garbage day, right? And all the garbage cans here have lids on them though because of the crows. but they still would try to get at the but so you just give them the French fries, and then they be like, God, Joe, there's French fries over here. Sally, Mark, Fred,
They
George.
tell all their friends.
And then all the crows would come, and I'd get all the footage that I needed.
Oh
And it was
my.
like, hey, there you go. That's how you get footage of crows.
Works
I don't
every
know if there's
time.
anything illegal about it, but that's what I did. And they love those McDonald's French
There is
fries.
probably some stupid bylaw that says you can't feed the wild crows.
Probably.
Yeah.
You can't feed the homeless people either, apparently, in some cities now,
Yeah.
right? So
True.
it's like, feed the homeless, go to jail.
Right. So
Feed
you
the
can't
crows,
feed the birds or
same
the
thing.
people. Because the health department might want to come check out what you're feeding them, right?
Yep.
Oh man. That is something else, man. I'll tell you what.
Yeah,
So it's 100 we got a heat index of 110 degrees here today.
Awesome.
No,
I
it's
like
not
it hot.
awesome. You do?
I do.
I hate it.
I hate the winter, so I never complain in the summer.
Maybe we
about
should
how
trade
hot it
places,
gets.
man. You should come down here to the south.
Yeah,
And I like
no
winter. I
issues.
like the snow and stuff. I want to live in Canada.
You are a crazy southern
Yeah.
belle, aren't you? Yeah, you are.
The grass
You
is
think
always
you like
greener.
you think you like the winter.
Uh-huh.
That's what you think.
Mm-hmm.
You come spend a winter up here, and you'll find out. Do you
I
not
don't know.
recall around Christmas
Mm.
when I couldn't get out of my house here, and I couldn't? Was it? Yeah, it was Christmas.
I remember y'all had a
Right,
big
we had
old
a big
snowstorm.
storm, and I made it up there, but
Like you
to
had the
my
drifts
parents.
in front of your door that you couldn't
It
open the
was a
door and
terrible
get out.
storm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was terrible. Couldn't get off the street. Like I got off, everybody
Jeez.
else was stuck, and I had to push some people out. And it was a terrible storm.
Yeah. It's pretty to look at, but not fun to drive in, not fun to shovel.
Nope. And I'm
No.
fortunate here where I live. We don't get the heavy winters like they get in other parts of the country. But no thanks. No, I'd be quite
We do in Oklahoma,
all
you
year
know,
long compared to that.
we do have some snowstorms like that. I have literally had that happen to me where the snow drifts blocked my garage and there was ice. So the garage door was frozen shut and I was trapped in my house, couldn't get the car out of the garage. And my front door also was frozen shut.
Yeah.
So I was trapped indoors for about 5 or 6 days last winter. We had a big old storm, but those are pretty rare in Oklahoma. We get some snow, but not like Canada, not like Canada snow. And our summers are just unbearable because it's really muggy, humid, soupy. Oh man, this is a good day to stay indoors.
And here's another story tonight. Jesse Waters succeeding Tucker Carlson in that time slot
Oh
that
yeah,
Tucker Carlson used to hold.
great! Congratulations, Jesse.
And how do you
Great.
feel about that? Do you think he can deliver the ratings?
Well, no one could beat Tucker. But you know, Jesse's probably my second favorite, or was when Tucker was still there. Jesse was kind of my second favorite anchor, and it makes sense. He's in the hour just before Tucker. I was hoping they wouldn't give that time slot to Hannity. I think Hannity's kind of past his prime, even though he's the senior guy now at Fox News. Nobody's been there longer than Sean Hannity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's time to give somebody younger a shot at that 7 o'clock time
The thing
slot.
I've observed about Jesse Waters is that he started. What was it? As he was like
He was Bill O'Reilly's protege.
Yeah, he was like
He
an
was the man on the
assistant kind of a
street.
thing. Then he did the Waters World,
Mhm.
met, people on the street interviews, and a lot of that was funny.
Oh, yeah.
It was
Loved
pretty
Waters
good
World.
stuff. And then he became popular, and they nurtured him and gave him more profile, and he's matured and become a more prominent voice within Fox News. But the thing about him is that because I think he, emerged from under the wing of Bill O'Reilly, I always found his style was very much in the same vein.
Yes.
His delivery, his
Yep.
speech patterns.
Totally.
I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Me too.
I
mean,
like
I'm happy
him,
for
but-
him.
Yeah.
But it's almost like Bill O'Reilly's revenge. Because
Kinda,
now
yeah,
it's almost
yeah.
like he's back in his old time slot.
Yeah, that's right.
Through Jesse Waters. It's almost
Yeah.
like getting the O'Reilly factor back at
Yeah,
8 o'clock.
there's a certain Bill O'Reilly style swagger to his voice and delivery.
You can tell he learned everything he knows from Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
You know who I was hoping that they might give that slot to was Tulsi Gabbard.
Mm,
She got to fill in for Tucker a few times
yeah.
at Tucker's request. I mean, Tucker specifically picked Tulsi to fill in for him when he was out on vacation.
Yeah.
But maybe that's why they didn't pick Tulsi, because she's a little too radioactive and she's a little too close to Tucker. And things are
I
not
think
good right now.
honestly, I think that Tulsi Gabbard has bigger things ahead of her than even that.
I hope so. I hope so.
I do believe that.
You think she's going to run next year?
She's her political career is still ahead of her. I
Mm.
don't know what it will be,
Or
but
when?
but she is. Yeah, she has big things ahead of her. You can see it. you
Oh
know?
yeah, always could.
Yeah.
I always saw a bright future in politics for Tulsi. I think she's still finding her way. She's still young. She's got some things to learn, but she is a quick study. And I think she has a pretty firm grasp on what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
She's got courage. She's telling the truth. And, I think she needs to finish up her military service. And then she's free to do what she wants. There's still a lot of things right now that, as long as she's in the armed forces, that she can't say, things she can't do while she's still a soldier. So, whenever her tour of duty ends, I hope that she will seek higher office. I don't want to see her go back to Congress. Congress was a waste of her time and talents. It's a lonely place, being one of the only few sane people in Congress. You can't get anything done. Ask Ron Paul, right?
Yeah.
He couldn't get anything done all the years he was there because he just didn't have the votes. He didn't have enough people in Congress who thought like him. I want to see her run for the big office.
I want your views on this before you have to leave.
Yeah, what you got there?
I noticed today that one of the top trending phrases on Twitter was nudity. And I thought, nudity
sounds good to me.
So I clicked on it.
Yeah, of course you did.
And so it led me around in a circle. And of course, what was it about? Roundabout, I'm going to start with this instead. It was about pride stuff. And Pride Month, blah, 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 and parades and nudity and public nudity and on. And then there was this story that popped up as a result. Starbucks union says Pride weekend strikes closed 21 stores.
Oh.
So because of Pride Month and all these demonstrations, 21 Starbucks were shut down because of strikes by, I guess, LGBTQ plus activists. Because I guess Starbucks made a decision to not allow pride flags, or they're trying to be whatever, more neutral, whatever.
Right.
They don't want to politicize their places now, or
well, they were, and then they got a lot of flack for it
Right.
from customers that weren't on board. So now they're trying to make everybody happy. It's like the Bud Light controversy. They're trying to make everybody happy now.
Exactly. So then there's all that. And then this was because of the nudity thing trending. This is what I found.
Ooh, I saw some videos from this
Twitter.
weekend, like, topless women at these pride celebrations. Look like Mardi Gras. The Bud Light.
They have a Bud Light float
in
the Pride Parade in Toronto this past weekend.
That's what we're looking at.
So the question here is I guess the LGBTQ plus community has stolen the Bud Light brand from the cowboys and the truckers.
Wow.
or whatever, right? Look at there's the Bud Light float, and they've sponsored the Pride Parade, so they're doubling down on the whole
Interesting.
Pride thing. So, what do you think?
Well, I see everyone had their clothes on in that video.
They did.
There are others out there that we probably can't show you.
I didn't pull those ones up. Yeah,
They're out
lots.
there, and I do mean out there. I don't know.
So, what do
why
you
are
think of
they-
these companies, the way they're responding? Like, I mean, Bud Light, they paid a heavy price, but then they're still sponsoring the Pride Parade,
Mhm.
and they've got people marching down the street with their Bud Light T-shirts and the whole thing. So, and then Starbucks, they're getting caught up in it. Man, I don't know. If I was the CEO of a big company, I would say, like, let's just sell the product. Like, let's not get involved in
Precisely.
politics.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And these companies are finding out, like Starbucks found out when they tried to get all woke or tried to shove a political agenda down their customers' throats.
Mhm.
You would think Bud Light would have come to that conclusion that let's go back to the way we used to do things a few years ago when politics never, ever, ever, ever entered your corporate profile, your corporate image, certainly not sexuality. I mean, they would
Yeah.
use sex to sell products, especially beer, right? I mean, you got the Bud Light girls, the beautiful girls in the bikinis who were out there, schlepping beer and selling beer. But, I I understand the difference though. There's a difference between sex selling a product, which is age old, it's as old as advertising, or trying to shove a particular political agenda down your customers' throats. People just wanted to have a beer.
Mhm.
Can we just not go
Or a
there?
coffee.
We just want to have a damn coffee.
Mhm.
Don't. This is the one place I don't want your politics. And that was always the corporate approach, was to stay away from controversy, right? Controversy made shareholders nervous. It made CEOs nervous. You just didn't do that. You just sold your product, told everybody why your product's great and why they ought to buy it. And now it's like you have to accept this whole agenda to buy this product. And we're politicizing products now. It just
And to kind of come full circle back to the situation in Ukraine and more specifically Russia, there's also marketing / propaganda that comes into play as part of the information war. So my question is, how much longer do you think the coverage of the attempted coup, in quotation marks, in Russia how much longer do you think it's going to continue to get coverage in the Western media? Because at first they were cheerleading and they were like, yay, Putin's done. And now it hasn't gone the way they planned. My guess is this will start to be memory holds within the next 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch any mainstream media today. I try to avoid it, but of course I have to look and see what they're saying. Are they still giving it wall-to-wall coverage, or are they already starting to memory hole it
Well,
a
let's
little
just
bit?
see here.
It's curious.
Well,
I
let's
haven't
bring
had a
up
chance.
ABC. It's still front and center on ABC.
Yeah.
And that's because Putin gave that speech today.
Yes, of course.
So that's pretty tough to ignore.
And how did they twist his words, I wonder? Because he was very clear. Hard to misinterpret what he said, but I'm sure they find a way to twist
Biden
his
says
meaning.
U.S. NATO allies not involved in Russian rebellion threatening Putin, which means they were involved
Of course.
in Russian rebellion threatening Putin. Otherwise, he wouldn't have to say anything about it at all.
I was expecting him to say that in his address today, because some of his, surrogates are pointing the finger at us, but I guess he's going to take the high road. And at least for now, he's not openly blaming the U.S. or NATO. He kind of hinted at it, kind of danced around it in his speech today.
Yeah.
So, I think they're going to memory hold this one pretty quick.
Yeah. and he's still front
Mm.
page on the internet.
Notice the
on
picture they
CBS News.
chose. Look at the still
Yeah.
photo they chose, right? They tried to choose something very unflattering that
Of
makes him
course.
look angry and mad and crazy. Uh huh. Uh huh.
Putin thanks Russians in first speech since Wagner revolt. Yeah, I
Wow.
think maybe another day. I don't think it will lead newscasts tomorrow.
Mm-mm.
You'll see it online. They probably won't mention it during the 6 p.m. news unless there's something very substantial that happens. I think by this time tomorrow, it will be on the road to a distant memory.
Yes, that's the way they want it because it didn't work out like they wanted. I'll tell you, when I was on that Twitter space with Mario Nawful and friends the other night, and some people who are definitely not my friends, and I had to sit there with these people that I vehemently disagree with. But you know what was great, Rick? They were practically, I, I hate to say this, they were practically masturbating during this whole thing where they thought there was going to be a coup, Putin was going to be disposed or taken on the run, and
Yeah.
they were so excited. I don't know if you listened to some of that Twitter space the other night, but you could tell they were just, oh, this is so great. It's so great. We're finally going to win. And then nothing happened. And you should have seen, I don't know if you were listening at that particular time when the convoy that was going to Moscow, the Wagner convoy, stopped. And there were some negotiations going on. And so word started to filter back to us that this thing was over. There wasn't going to be a coup, that an agreement had been reached, that the Belarusian president had intervened. And these war hawks, like Malcolm Nance, were so disappointed. I thought they were going to cry, Rick. I thought they were like, you talk about a buzzkill. They were so disappointed. They thought it was all going to happen today, and then it didn't. And they were just so bummed, and I loved it. It was
That's
all I
why
could
I
do.
was like, when it was all happening, I stood back and I said, well, if it is a serious thing, it won't happen quickly.
Right.
I didn't think that Putin was really in any serious danger. It was a serious matter, but
I'm not even sure he ever left the Kremlin. There were all
Mm.
these reports that he'd gotten on a plane to St.
Yeah.
Petersburg, that he was getting out of the country, that he was on the run. I think all that turned out to be fake news. I don't believe he ever
Yep.
left the Kremlin.
Yeah.
And what were they thinking? Did they really think that, what was it, 5,000 guys were
Yeah.
going to go take Moscow? Are you out of your mind? The Nazis couldn't take Moscow in 4 years of fighting in World War II. They couldn't take Moscow. You really think your 5,000 men are going to be able to take Moscow? No, that's
Yeah.
not going to happen, bro. It's just not going to happen. But they were just fantasizing out loud and calling it news. That's
Yep.
where I have a problem with it. I was just sitting back, not saying much, saying, let's wait and see what happens here, because what
Yes.
they were predicting just didn't sound logical or possible. And at first they were saying, "Oh, they've got 50,000 men. They're going to," and I'm like, "You couldn't even take Moscow with 50,000."
See, that's what I was hearing,
Mhm.
in the reports that I was getting that day,
Mhm.
50,000, 50,000, 50,000.
Mhm.
No.
Where'd they get that number? They were just
Yeah, I
throwing
mean,
that
because
number
his
around.
total force is 50,000, but he left
Mhm.
the majority of his troops in place, and he
Mm.
took about 4 to 5,000 with him for the convoy to Moscow.
And a lot of his troops were not on board with this crazy
That's
thing
right.
either.
That's right.
A lot of the Wagner guys were like, I ain't getting involved in that. That sounds
Yeah.
like trouble to me. I don't want any part of it.
No kidding.
Some of them went on to Rostov.
Yep.
And, when I saw them enter Rostov like that and just chatting nonchalantly with some of the Russian forces, I wondered what the hell that was all about.
Yeah.
I would have stopped them at the border and not let them enter the country,
Mhm.
but they didn't. They let them in. That's troubling. That's something that Putin needs to deal with. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was just great to watch all of their fantasies get confronted by reality finally.
Yeah. Yep.
And boy, they didn't like it, but I sure did.
So regardless
It
of
was
the
great.
assessments that we've seen coming from Western mainstream media tonight, I I think Vladimir Putin is still firmly in control, and I
Really,
think that his response was brilliant.
honestly, I can't find any fault with how he handled this. It baffled me a little bit at first.
Mhm.
I was thinking like, what would Joseph Stalin do? Joseph Stalin would have had those boys in the gulag in no time. And
Honestly, I have to admit that if I were in his shoes, I probably, unless I had good advisors helping me make the decisions that he made, my knee jerk reaction would have been, okay, airstrikes, take them out.
yep, I was expecting that.
Yep.
Everybody was. We all thought Kiev was going to get wiped off the face of the earth after that,
Yeah.
just to punish them. But
Yeah.
you can't really connect this thing to Ukraine. This seemed to be a problem coming from within.
Right.
Now, they may have been manipulated from without, but
Mhm.
even that, I'm not so sure that we can find any evidence, at least not yet, that the Ukrainians were at all involved. They never tried to come in as a backup force. People were predicting that. They thought once Wagner takes Moscow, whatever, that the Ukrainian army would be right behind, right? Bringing the rear flank. That didn't happen. Didn't even see any signs that they were planning to do that, probably because they're smarter than that. They knew that even with all their forces, they weren't about to try and take Moscow. It'd be 1941 all over again, and they'd get their ass kicked. So they weren't going to do that. The Ukrainians were not going to do that. And they just didn't have enough men. They would have been obliterated by the Russian military in no time. And the
Oh,
Russian
yeah.
military was ready for them. Moscow was essentially under martial law. I don't think they formally declared martial law, but when you've got troops on the streets and you're putting up barricades and you're closing the city down,
That's
and
Washington, D.C.
that's Washington, D.C.
That's
At
right.
Joe
That's
Biden's
called the
inaugural.
inauguration of Joe Biden.
Yes, that's
Yes.
what we did. But
That's
Putin
right.
didn't even do that at a
Uh-huh.
time when he thought possibly an invading army was coming.
And even when they
Yeah.
did that, they still had to deal with the Chewbacca guy with the horns. And and even then they couldn't even put that down. They still got in the building.
That's right, because the cops opened the gates and let them
That's
in.
right. They said, come on in.
Would you like a tour? We'll show you around
That's
a little
right.
bit. Truly,
Mhm.
but that wouldn't happen at
And
the Kremlin.
and the J6
guarantee you.
event was not bloodless because Ashley Babbitt was killed.
That's right.
And
right.
and they lied about a lot of the other
Mm,
casualties.
yeah,
They were
they
just
sure did.
outright plain lies. We know that.
Mhm.
So what a fiasco that was compared to what we just saw.
Yeah, right. I mean, had that happened here, it would not have been bloodless. And in the
No.
end, it was a bloodless, unfortunate incident for President Putin. But I think he handled it well.
Yeah.
I honestly do. And I think any sane person, even if you don't support Russia and the conflict, that you'd have to say he handled that with a cool head and a steady hand.
Yes.
They won't say that, of course. They'll
No.
never say anything nice about Putin. They'll never give him credit where credit is due. It's one of my pet peeves about this whole thing. And all the presidential candidates, not one of them will say a nice word about Putin.
That's right.
Never. They're not allowed to. It's not in the script.
Mhm.
Got to read the script. He's a madman. He's a lunatic. He's a monster. That's what you have to say if you want to get elected dog catcher in the United States or Canada. And I just realized I got to go.
Yeah.
I tonight after Maverick News, 9:30 Eastern time, tune in to catch me with Jose Vega. You guys know who Jose is, right? He's the guy that goes out and disrupts all these town halls by politicians and calls them out on their hypocrisy and asks them tough questions about the war, about nuclear arms, about all kinds of stuff. He just calls them out. And I love Jose. We've been friends for a while, but I've never actually done his show. He's got a show called Declaring Independence. That's the name of the show and the name of the YouTube channel. If you want to look it up and join us over there after Maverick News at 9:30 tonight, Eastern Time. And I'll be there. And
Okay.
Mr. Walker, thanks for having me. I will see you again soon. I was planning to come on tomorrow, and we may not have a show tomorrow for reasons I know you're going to explain.
Yeah.
But before I go, if we don't have a show tomorrow, we were going to cover this for you. And I wanted to show you something that is happening tomorrow night. If Maverick News is off the air, you can tune in to this. I think our audience would be very interested in this because this is right up the Maverick News alley. RFK Jr. will be hosting a health policy roundtable tomorrow night with Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, Dr. Pierre Corey, Maureen McDonald, Del Bigtree, and many, many more. They're going to be talking about healthcare policy in a Kennedy administration. And most of all, how do we hold those accountable who lied to us and locked us down and forced mandates on us during the pandemic? So obviously that's something we cannot broadcast on YouTube because YouTube still has their stupid rules. So if we are here, that'll probably be a Rumble only broadcast. And if we're not here, you can watch through Zoom. And if you go to Kennedy's website, kennedy24.com, and look under events, you'll find the event link and the Zoom meeting ID so that you can join, watch, participate. And I think you guys will find that very, very, very interesting. So, and Rick will tell you why we may not have a show tomorrow night. That's best explained by Mr. Walker. So I'm going to get out of here. Love you guys. Good to see you, Mavericks. Thanks for having me, Rick.
Thank you, Lori.
See you very soon. All my best to you and your family.
Okay. Thank you. Take
Good
care.
night, sir.
See ya.
Bye.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know if there'll be a show or not tomorrow night. I've just got some personal family things to take care of. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I'll probably be here, but I'm not sure. I'm going to do my best to join you tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on the Maverick News Channel. Let's take a little break. When we come back, the polls should be closing if they're not closed already. Yes, they are closed, and I will bring you up to date with the election results in that Toronto mayoral by-election, and we'll find out if the polling was anywhere near accurate or if it was propaganda when we see the results start to pour in tonight. And we'll touch on some other news as well. And I'm not sure exactly what we'll do. Maybe we'll have an opportunity to go to the phones or have some people join us in the video chat. I'm not sure which yet, but stay with me and we'll get it cranked up when we come back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. Okay, I'm back, and the polls closed 16 minutes ago. I think we will get results very quickly in this Toronto mayoral by-election. I think it's worth at least making note of tonight because Toronto is Canada's most populous city. Some of the issues there are universal to Canada and the US. Some of the municipal issues very specific to Toronto itself. Over 80 people running for the mayor's position in Toronto. It is a by-election because the mayor who was in charge, John Tory, got caught up in a little bit of a scandal with a female staffer. Say no more. And so he resigned. 80 some people now looking to replace him. According to the polls, Olivia Chow was supposed to be the front runner, the wife of the late Jack Layton, who was the leader of the federal New Democratic Party in Canada, a socialist party. And Olivia Chow also very left wing, very woke. And that is a great concern to people who are somewhat conservative. And Doug Ford, the Ontario Premier, coming right out and saying, please don't vote for her. The city will collapse, essentially, if according to him. But Doug Ford, no, not really acting like a conservative since being elected, accused by many on the conservative side of being an actual liberal, even though he's the leader of and the conservative premier of the progressive conservatives in the province of Ontario, Canada. Anyway, we'll see how it plays out. Chris Sakochia, Chris Sky, prominent freedom fighter, high hopes, people within the freedom movement very focused on him, but did not poll well, was not even ranking in the top 10 in the polling. A lot of claims that the polling therefore was rigged or fixed by some, including Chris Sakochia, who also faced some legal challenges, I guess, having to give himself up to police at one point again. I don't know. A lot going on with Chris Sakochia, also known as Chris Sky. So we'll find out tonight if Chris Sky actually was generating much response from the public. Let's take a look at the results here so far. What do we have? Bring this up. A little hard to see, but with 1,012 of 1,451 polls reporting, Anna Baileo is leading the race with 142,000 votes, 36.5%. Olivia Chow, 135,000. So much closer, I think, than people were expecting. Mark Saunders, former police chief, 31,268 votes. And then it tapers off after that. Anthony Fury, 18,667. Josh Matlow, Chloe Brown, all pulling up the rear with, 15,000, 10,000, 10,000. Other candidates combined, 25,400 votes. Let me just pull this down. I'm going to refresh that just to make sure we have the most up-to-date information for you tonight. Yep, that's exactly right. That's where we're at. That is live. So those are the results we have at the moment. So we'll keep an eye on that over the next, I would think we'll have a declared winner within the hour. That would be my prediction based on the way these things have gone in the past. Now, that being said, if it's really, really close, and so far it is, that might affect, how we proceed with predicting who is actually going to come out the winner. This is a race worth taking note of because whoever wins and gets that job as mayor of Toronto has not just a national voice, but an international voice as well. Toronto being Canada's biggest, most populous city by far. Other cities like Montreal, Vancouver, they're prominent as well. They of course have a big impact on Canada's identity and reputation, its image internationally. But Toronto, that's the city everybody thinks of, and the CN Tower, and the mayor of Toronto, even though it's a municipal position, ends up with a prominent voice around the world. So we'll take note of this tonight. Let's take a brief break, and when we come back, we'll fire up the phones, and you guys can join the conversation. We can talk about really anything you want tonight. Just stay with me, and I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, just getting everything fired up with the phone lines, and here's the number to call. We will be online with the phones momentarily.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a maverick. Join us.
Okay, folks, phone lines are up. That's the number to call. I'll put the number on the screen for you. Hang on just a second here. The number to call is 1-833-975-3733, 1-833-975-FREE. The phone call won't cost you a penny. Won't cost you even a dime. Phone lines are up and running, I believe. Yes, they are functional, and we are ready to rock and roll. So there it is on the screen there. There it is there. And we are ready to take our first calls of the evening. So let's just give it another brief minute or two while we get everything. Well, while you guys come online now that the system is working, and I shall return right after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, so again, if you want to join the program, it's 1-833-975-3733, 1-833-975-3733. Not sure if all of this is working properly because we don't have anybody in the queue, which is unusual. We normally have at least 2 or 3 people stacked up there. Just check a few other things here. Oh, yeah, I guess there was also a cyber attack against Suncor Energy. So this is a Calgary-based oil company in Canada. I used to work for them. I had a job at a gas station when I was going through college and university. I actually liked that job. And so they say that they have been the victim of a cyber attack, really not providing many details here tonight. Social media users complained over the weekend about not being able to use credit or debit cards at Petro-Canada and Suncor stations. When I worked for them, they were called Sunoco, Sun Oil Company. They have taken over the Petro-Canada brand in recent years as well. And there were issues with the Petro-Canada official Twitter account, I guess. And their websites, which I guess were taken down. And they acknowledged that over the weekend as well. And some environmentalists are cheering, saying that this is a good thing. Some people calling it a company behind a colonial pipeline. So, yeah, this is strange a little bit, but also I think something we're seeing more of. And that is a fact. So anyway, just something else to take note of tonight. Suncor. Let's just check the yes. Olivia Chow now out in front in the election results, but it's time to go to the phones and we'll talk about that. And here's our first call of the night. Let's see if we get him up on the screen. Here we go. Is this Pete?
Pete.
Hello, how are you tonight?
No, so bad. Yourself?
Well, I'm just fine. What's on your mind?
Good. Well, I was just phoned in. I was thinking we had a chat there the other night about this Russia stuff when we were on video call in there.
Mm-hmm.
I got to kind of follow it fairly closely. I got a bit of skin in the game there, but it's still pretty unsettling over there. And like myself, I think Putin has he's got more of a game plan than the NATO boys ever will have. You know, I like his moves. He's keeping his head calm, and you know, I can say nothing bad about the guy at all. The way he's running things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know,
as we say, he seems to have kept a level head and a steady hand at the wheel throughout this.
Yeah, I got a cousin that was lived over there for probably 15 years altogether. and he got married over there. He was over there with the oil, and he sure doesn't say anything bad about Putin at all. Like, for it being a communist country, he says Putin is actually trying to bring Russia away from the old Bolshevik ways. And said, yeah, he just wants to deal more with the outside world and get away from that, the old way of
Yeah,
thinking.
well, to be clear, Russia is really not a communist country anymore. It isn't. It's not the former Soviet Union. It's not like that. It really stopped being a communist country back in 1991.
Yeah, and
that's when that's when Mikhail Gorbachev was there, and then we saw the fall of the Berlin Wall. And it's not a communist country. People still in the West think of it in that way. There's been so much media directed at that through, our movies, our television, our news media. And it's just ingrained in people's minds here that Russia is a communist country, but they have elections. They are not a communist country. They're actually a federation, a republic. They're not the old Soviet Union.
Exactly. And, this Russia-phobia, that has to stop. I had a friend in the armed forces, and he was just so adamant that Putin was going to break out of his boundaries and just slowly, one by one country, take over the whole of Europe. Well, I can't see that. Putin had, he had the majority of the oil in Europe as it was. Now, why would he have to own the countries, when he can sell them the oil at any price he basically wants? Because there's no way we can ship it across the ocean and even come close to competing with Russia's price.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't follow the Russia phobia, and like Lori was saying there tonight, I think they, on this mutiny, I think they fully expected that Ukraine and NATO would follow Prigozhin right back into Moscow, but there was no way that Prigozhin was going to take Moscow with 5,000 men. Like, that was silly, because he'd left all the rest of them in Rostov.
Yes.
So, it to me, it just kind of seemed like they were, if NATO was chomping at the bit like they say they were, that they would have followed in behind the Ukrainians and just taken care of Russia within a week. But I don't think NATO is too flush with the weapons or the material, and especially the manpower, to take on a force like Russia. There's no way. And the threat of a nuclear strike, I think Putin, that's the last thing on his mind, although he's said it a few times about the nuclear strikes, but he's definitely going to be the last one to set one off. It's like the United States is the only country in the world that has used a nuke against a foreign power. And I don't think Putin wants that reputation at all.
Twice.
Well, yeah, they've used it twice, but against the same enemy. I mean, that's all. But no, I don't think Putin's going to go there. But God help the people that try and take on Russia, because they are very fiercely proud people of their country, and they should be. They've come through a pretty darn tough time, and I think they got the rights to be. If we had people here that would look after our country as much as Putin is looking after Russia, Canada would be in a lot prettier shape.
I hear you.
So go ahead.
No, I'm sitting back, letting you carry the conversation because I'm just following along. I don't really have a lot to add, and you're kind of echoing a lot of what we've been saying. So I think you're, I'm kind of there with you.
Exactly. And that's one thing I got to thank for this show, you and this show. It's kept me going along through a lot of it. If I miss something through the day or I don't have time, I'm on board here listening to the show every night. And it's kept me informed of what I want to look at as a citizen. And, it's bringing some of the sleeping people out. It has to be, because nobody can't sleep through this, can they? It's right before their faces. Why can't they wake up?
Yeah.
I don't know whether I myself, I blame it a lot on the drugs, taking a lot of people away from common sense and giving them an alternative to the piss poor world that we live in. It takes them away from their
the question right now kind of circulating is, where is Prigozhin tonight? And that is not really clear. Western media, a lot of speculation. I think the last time that we can really confirm where he was yesterday when we ran that clip from journalist Patrick Lancaster in Rostov-on-Don when Prigozhin was there in the back of a vehicle. And Patrick Lancaster managed to get a very brief comment from Prigozhin as he was slowly driving through a crowd. And the word is that he's supposed to make his way to Belarus, where he will be not, stationed and not charged, and I guess enjoying to some degree protection from Lukashenko up there. But it's not really clear where he is tonight. I don't know.
Well,
this is probably wise. You probably don't want people to know where you are when you're him right now.
No, I wouldn't doubt he is in Belarus. And the men that were with him are probably those 5,000 men anyway are with him, because there's also 35,000 Russians in Belarus stationed. Now, speculation, but I wouldn't doubt we're going to see something from the north come back down in there. And that's where it could get tricky, because that's also getting in pretty close to where the NATO forces are stationed.
Right.
And, that to me is going to be the real hot wire, is if something happens, and God help him, if something goes on in Belarus, she's going to be bust wide open. There will be no stopping it.
Well, listen, sir, I appreciate your call. We're going to move on. We've got other people in the queue. And
you bet.
It's been a great talking to you again. Look forward to the next one.
Yeah. Yep. Same here, Rick.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Take care, my friend.
Yep. Bye.
All right.
Yeah, you too.
Who do we have on the line now?
You got the man without a plan to master all disasters coming to you, Rick.
Hey, Mr. Bird Saver Man.
You know what? Why couldn't have been a turkey? Why couldn't have been a turkey that flew into my window?
He needed you, man. He picked your house because he knew you would save him.
Yeah, well, we all have a right and responsibility as humans. Any life form whatsoever that's in distress, give a helping hand. I'm not a vegetarian. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, I'm not a tree hugger, but I don't care if it's a dog, if it's a bird, if it's a cat, if it's a fish, if it's a turtle trying to cross the street, a busy street, or the geese. Right? You have an obligation as a good human being to stop and intervene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without changing the course of nature.
Yeah, well, I think what you did there was great, and that was a beautiful bird, really beautiful bird.
I've never seen one up close like that.
Yeah.
And then I had to put it in the cage. I didn't have gloves. I'm like, shit. Hopefully this thing don't get a hold of me with those sharp talons, right? To do some quick damage. But he was stunned. He was knocked out. And when I first got to him, it would look like he was dead, like he broke his neck, right? He was laying down. And I grabbed the video and I thought, okay, I'm going to do a video of this bird, right? And then by the time I came out of the house with my phone, it was standing up. But he would have been cat bait if I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cats were already lurking for him. As for Prigozhin, I think it's, Rick, honestly, I think it's a Trojan horse. And Putin's a smart man, okay? Because now you have the Wagner group closer to Kiev, okay, than, is it Kiev or Odessa?
Yep. No, Kiev, yep.
Closer,
about 100 kilometers away.
Closer, right. He's closer to Kiev than you are to me in Windsor.
Yes.
Think about that for a second.
Yeah, and that combined with the other Russian forces that were already stationed there in Belarus, they're within striking distance of the capital. The counteroffensive is focused on objectives in the south, and it is leaving Kiev vulnerable. And if they launch an assertive attack on the nation's capital, they could end the entire conflict simply by taking out the seat of government.
And they're sleeping with one eye open now in Kiev.
Yep.
Because my prediction is this war is not going to go on for longer than 90 days. It's all done. Okay. This is my prediction and only my prediction. They just made a strategic move, like a checkmate. Okay. By putting Prigozhin in Belarus. He's still loyal to Russia and the Russian people.
Yeah, well, some people saying that may be a viable theory, and it may come to pass.
100% it is. Do you think for a second that Putin couldn't have droned out 5,000 people?
Well, precisely, yes.
Even the vehicle he was in, he could have counterstruck at any moment, took out the leadership of the Wagner, okay, but he didn't. Okay, it's going to work in his benefit. He's not a stupid man. He worked for who before? The KGB. Okay, he's not a stupid man. Okay, and Lori said it right. They were like masturbating on mainstream media. Oh boy, this is the end. This is the end. This is the end. Believe me, they're sleeping with one eye open in Ukraine tonight. And I feel very sorry for the good folks that are getting put to the front of the meat grinder. Okay, as they come in their houses and put guns in people's hands and force them to the front lines. This is over. I believe it's over.
Yeah, well, I'm not as bold as you. I'm not going to make that kind of prediction because I just don't know. But that is certainly a very viable scenario. And also, you have to keep in mind that Prigozhin, as part of his involvement with the government and the military, ran cyber warfare, information warfare campaigns for the Russians in the U.S., admitted to doing it back in 2016. So his company, one of his companies, was directly involved in that. So he's part of, the Russian psyops, and that might be exactly what we just witnessed. It might be the most elaborate psychological warfare operation we've ever seen.
It's a Trojan horse, my friend. And Putin played it like a champ. I'm telling you. Watch, I'm in a betting town with Caesars Windsor only a couple miles from me. And I'll tell you, I put $1,000 down on this one. This war ends within 90 days or less. Enough's enough.
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So,
it would be
but
nice to
that's
see it end. Yeah.
that's what, well, there's another war going on too, and that's the mayor's race in Toronto.
Yep.
Okay, Olivia Chow gets in. Look out, folks. I feel really sorry for you guys in Toronto. I watched all the interviews of Olivia Chow and the other leader there that's endorsed by John Tory, who was leading 10 minutes ago ahead of Olivia Chow. What's her name? Aladdin or Alita?
Anna Baileo.
Yeah, by Leo. Okay. Either way, Toronto's in deep shit. Okay, you think Chinese interference? You have it right there with Olivia Chow. What I can't stand about politics, all politics at all levels, is whoever gets the most money in their political campaign are the ones that usually win. Even our Toronto, or even our Windsor mayor, Drew Dilkins, he had the money from the Chinese. And in our elections, Chris Holt, who was running against him, didn't even have half the money that was rounded up by Drew Dilkins. 90% of his campaign money came from the Chinese community, Rick.
Yeah.
That's Chinese influence, okay? And I don't care what anybody says. It was right there. So they got to take out the cap on donating, okay, to these candidates, because these guys are getting millions of dollars, some of them, especially in a Toronto mayor's race, or Vancouver or Montreal. These are big cities with big, deep pockets.
Yes, and
People are putting it in.
There were posts on social media just within the last day showing links between Olivia Chow and, I would say, organizations from China raising more concerns. And Anna Baileo, these candidates generally are all neoliberal woke politicians. Not too much on the conservative side available there, with maybe Mark Saunders, the former police chief, being more conservative in his views. But it doesn't look like he's got a chance here tonight.
I went to a city hall vote, okay, and I was part of the delegation, okay, to speak my mind on the legalization of cannabis. This is before they legalized, and they were in the works of voting on letting stores into the municipality of wherever in Windsor at that time for us, right? And the mayor was against it, and the people that he had standing up that were not for it, they were all from China. They were all Chinese, okay? And I thought it was weird because, especially with cannabis, it's in the book of Chinese medicine. It's been there 2,000 years in the book of Chinese medicine, right? So that's where I put the link with the Chinese interference in our Windsor election. 100%. Okay, it was all. I swear to God, Rick, if you've seen it, you would have went, "You got to be joking me." The only ones to say anything bad about it were the Chinese, and they were all on the mayor's side. The whole, I couldn't believe how many came.
Well, here tonight, Olivia Chow is back out in front. 250,555 votes, 37.1% of the vote for her. And Anna Baileo has slipped into second place now, 220,984 votes, 32.7, 1,361 of 1,451 polls reporting. So I think at this point, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to catch Olivia Chow. It's basically a two-way race between Olivia Chow and Anna Baileo. These other candidates all pulling up the rear. Mark Saunders in third place with 8.5% of the vote. I don't think there's any way now he can catch either one of those two with the remaining polls. And Chris Sky, he's the guy we've been following. Let's see how he's faring here, if at all. Chris Sakochia, because I know a lot of our viewers are very interested in him. Where are you, Chris Sakochia? Over 80 candidates. Like, it's an insane number of people running. Chris Sakochia, where'd you go? I'm looking here. Does this surprise you at all, Leo? These results?
No, it don't. It don't. The freedom movement, okay, it's big, but it's not in one area. Okay, as a whole throughout the country, it's big, huge. Okay, But in one area like Toronto, especially when I was up there at one of the rallies they had in Toronto, and I met Paul PDS, who's on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met Paul personally up there, and we went for coffee and stuff. The showing wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be, and that's when he made his debut, I think, on running, or he was talking about it. He was talking about running for the mayor.
Yep.
But it wasn't as big as not even close to what I thought it was going to be. Right?
7,622 votes. He has 1.1% of the vote. 1.1 tonight.
I figured that, right? I feel sorry for the people of Toronto. Either way, you're getting screwed tonight. Just remember one thing. I have a couple houses I might put up for sale down here in Windsor, and you can get them. If you sell your place in Toronto for $1.5 million, I might let you have one of mine for $750,000. Just keep that in mind. Ciao. I got to go, Rick.
Okay.
Have a good night, guys.
All right. Thank you, Leo. Have a great night. And good work with that bird. That was great stuff. Okay, let's move on to our next caller. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Hey, Rick. How are you?
I'm okay. Who's this?
This is Note.
Well, hello. Welcome back.
Hi. Long time no speak.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Well, I'm okay. What are you thinking tonight? What do you want to talk about?
Well, lordy. I don't even know what direction to go anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a while. I've been listening as I've been busy doing stuff. I got a lot on my plate right now, but, just some of the stuff that comes to mind, Lord, 100% agree with Leo about Chow. I truly, in my gut, believe that there's some sort of interference going on there. That's just crazy. I just watched her in a parade, very woke parade, dancing around with her pale pink and pale blue sandals and shit. Oh, come on. Listen, come on. Something's just, I smell a rat. I do. I smell a rat. I can't even believe I'm talking about political stuff, because I was the last person to even care really 8 years ago. But holy moly, it's just all of this stuff is in our face, right? And, I'm surprised this whole woke stuff is going on to such a degree. Nando's has gone cashless now.
Sorry, who? Which company? Which company?
Nando's. That chicken place, Nando's, Nandos, Nando's.
I don't have one around here. I'm not even familiar with it. Is that a chain?
Oh, yeah. There was one in North Van. When I was living in North Van, there used to be a Nando's right on Lonsdale. But I don't know if it's worldwide yet or anything, but I saw a guy do a video going into a Nando's. It might have been in the UK. I can't remember. Anyways, and he said, I've heard you've gone cashless. And the guy behind the counter said, yeah, we have. And he goes, I don't see that you have any tills anymore. He says, no, we took them all out. They actually removed their tills even, which is madness. I can't even believe that they think that, I don't think any reaction to any company that does this stuff right now, I see it being 110% negative. The comments on their announcements, people are like, no. I haven't seen anything positive about companies that are going cashless. I just haven't. Any sane person can see the pitfalls of that, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I see that that chain has at least some locations in Ontario. I see there's one in Hamilton, but I've never been to a Nando's myself, so not familiar with.
Well, they're not that. I went to the one in North Van once or twice, and it's not that great. It's kind of like fast food, kind of. I don't know. It's nothing to write home about. And if I was still living in North Van, I would never go there because of this. I can tell you that.
Yeah. And
I think most people feel that way. So I heard some theories about why companies do this, and I don't know. They're all into, obviously, in my humble opinion, they get incentives. From what I've heard, they get incentives through the WEF/government to go cashless, right? To implement this whole cashless society thing, from what I'm hearing. And some businesses are actually getting like $100,000 incentive to do this, right? Well, to me, that's incredibly short-sighted because most people aren't going to go for that. And with what rents cost, which is insane, that $100,000 ain't going to go far, don't you think? And so when that money runs out,
I'm not familiar with any government programs like that to incentivize it. I wouldn't be surprised if there's stuff like that, but I haven't seen any. Is it federal or provincial or what do you know? I don't know.
I'm not sure. I can't remember right now. I've got a head full of all kinds of other stuff. And I didn't even know what I was going to talk about when I called you, but it's just been so long. And when you do the video thing, like at half the time I'm still like in my grubbies with no makeup on and stuff. And I'm thinking, there's no way in hell I want to be permanently on the internet looking like this. If I knew in advance, maybe one day I would do that and join in with you. But I'm painfully aware as to how permanent the internet is, especially as an artist. Yeah. So anyways, just saying. But so that and like there's been so much other stuff. I mean, honestly, out of all this war mess, to me, quite frankly, Putin is the only sane-speaking individual in this whole thing. I mean, call me crazy, but he's the only one that talks common sense and keeps a level head. Everybody else is talking out of their butts. It's ridiculous, some of the stuff that I hear about and see flying across my screen as I take a quick glance while I'm doing all the stuff that I'm doing. I'm shaking my head 90% of the time going, what did they just say? You know?
Well, I think that the media response here in, among NATO countries and Canada and the US was ridiculous. It's like they're suffering from Putin derangement syndrome, and they're not even really thinking about what they're cheering for. They wanted this guy who really was calling for a much tougher military stance and basically a scorched earth policy in Ukraine. They wanted that guy to replace Putin. It made no sense. Putin hasn't been as aggressive as that at all. He's being criticized for not being, more coercive and using more force. And yet they're cheering for the guy that's going to launch even greater attacks theoretically.
Exactly,
it's just stupid. The whole thing is.
The whole thing is utterly stupid, and I'd like to believe that Leo's right. That it's going to all come to a close that soon. That would be great. But I mean, seriously, Canada's still giving these yucca-futzes billions of dollars.
Well,
I mean, come on.
The U.S. is
so is the U.S.
But the other thing to keep in mind with regard to all that is that as much as it appears we're giving Ukraine money, in reality, it's all basically being lent to them through a lend-lease program. And in the end, Ukraine will be on the hook for the debt. Every time a missile is fired, every time a bullet is fired, it's another check that the Ukrainians will have to write down the road in order to pay off the debt. We're saddling with debt, and in that way, we are looking at NATO, Western countries, essentially enslaving the Ukrainian people. It's a form of power that will be held over Ukraine in the long run.
Of course.
Even if the NATO initiative, the Ukrainians win this war, that power will be held over them. In the end, Ukraine won't even really be truly a sovereign, free nation state unto itself, because they'll be beholden to the Western powers that have lent them the money. This is just a shell game. It's a scam.
It is, and the whole thing is a scam. But in reality, when you think about it, are any of us sovereign anymore with all the infiltrations in our government?
Well, the reality is, we're going to end up paying for it because the Ukrainians won't have the capacity to pay for it. Did you know that after World War II and the Lend-Lease Act that was implemented at that time, do you know when the United Kingdom, the UK, finally paid off its debt to the United States? Take a wild guess.
No.
2020.
And
it took
2020.
2020, 3 years ago.
Wow.
It took that long for them to pay off the debt from World War II through the Lend-Lease program that was implemented at that time. And now here we are doing this with Ukraine. And when we emerge from this, Ukraine will be indebted, to the tune of trillions of dollars, with an economy that is a fraction the size of what the United States has. I don't see them ever being able to repay it. So the whole thing is.
No, I think that's going to be endless. None of it makes sense, and everyone involved they're going to buckle under the weight of this at some point. And I don't know what will happen, but it's bad. And I mean, yeah, everything is such a, I don't even know what the word is to use, but okay, I'm pacing now to get my head clear. I think, honestly, my honest, humble opinion, I think all voting needs to be halted completely. I think the whole system needs to be taken right back to the core, paper ballots, IDs, none of this other weird stuff. I think the investigations into all this interference needs to happen, and no voting should happen, because honestly, I smell a rat. I mean, the business with Freeland on not just the WEF she's on, I can't remember the name. The name of this other board that she's on, but all of it is conflict of interest. How this is even allowed, I don't even know. How Trudeau can get away with this $105 million contract he signed for Canadians for this digital thing through the WEF. All of this stuff is corruption and treasonous and conflict of interest. It's a bloody mess. I truly think that my humble opinion from this very simple Canadian is, after everything I keep seeing, everything needs to be halted. The interference thing needs to be examined and cleared up, so that there's no question when it comes to voting. I smell a rat with this Olivia Chow in a big way. I mean, holy cow. I mean, just a little bit I've seen of her, I do feel sorry for Toronto. Vancouver is a heck of a mess, with, this legalized drugs BS. You got things that look like food trucks downtown Vancouver with sandwich boards, but oh, hey, you can get cocaine and, whatever off these sandwich boards at what used to look like food trucks, but now they're drug trucks. I mean, and yet Health Canada is working very hard to shut down our Canadians' accessibility to natural supplements. I have a 34-page thing written up on that. We're in big trouble. Oh yeah, Canada's going to legalize hard drugs, but no, you can't have your natural supplements. I mean, come on, like this. It's a mess. It's a mess. I mean, there's just so much going on, and I just really do hope that, Leo's right.
At this point in the Toronto mayoral by-election, Olivia Chow is leading with 263,301 votes, 37.2% of the votes she has locked up. Anna Baileo is second with 229,565, 32.4%. So of the polls, 1,392 are reporting of 1,451. So I'm going to say that Olivia Chow is going to be the next mayor, because I just don't see that there's enough space there left for Anna Baileo to make up that gap.
Or anybody.
Yeah,
and how did she get that far? And Toronto 99 News on Twitter had already announced that she won over a half hour ago.
Yeah.
They've already tweeted that,
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's simple
how she
math
won with her rainbow stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
but I mean, I smell a
I have
rat.
to say this: Toronto is a progressive city. It is a liberal city. It's very socialist. It's very diverse. It has people from all over the world there. It is not the Toronto that we had back in the 70s or even the 80s. The demographics have changed dramatically. As much as the people on this program, our viewers, our listeners, are freedom oriented, probably more conservative in their views as I am, as you are. You have to realize that, just look at that video that I ran of the Pride Parade from this past weekend and look at the number of people out there. So when you see the protests on the, say the freedom protests or the anti drag queen storytime protests, yeah, they get crowds out for that too. But then compare that to the size of the pro Pride Month, Pride season celebrations.
Oh,
You could say those are demonstrations too. They're a show of support, and they are huge. So the reality is, people, there is a lot of public support on that side too. There's polarization politically in this country, and you can see it on the streets. You're seeing it here tonight. As much as people want to say that there's maybe rigging or whatever you want to say, no, you've got a whole raft of progressive, socialist, neoliberal candidates, woke candidates, a whole bunch of them, more than 80 candidates in total, very few of them conservative. Chris Sky being maybe the most prominent freedom voice, maybe the only freedom voice in the pack. He only got
they did everything
of the
could
vote.
to stifle him.
They're not cheating to that degree. I'm sorry, it's just like that's
no,
not cheating.
I think there's
reality.
I think there's something going on personally, but I don't know what. I wouldn't even know what to speculate. But just
public opinion,
smell a rat.
Advertising, they're it's campaign.
Well, yeah,
dollars,
using the media.
It's control of the mainstream media with government funding to
Exactly.
it. Those are the things that influence the election. But people are going to sit here and say,
terrible.
And I know there are a lot of people who are probably saying, "Oh, it's all fixed. Like they cheated at the ballot box." No, not to that degree, folks. No, but they do manipulate the elections with information warfare, with government funding for mainstream media. It slants the coverage. They look at what they did during the election. They really didn't give the other candidates with other points of view.
Yeah, they set
right?
They set Chris Sky down how many times? Didn't include him in things.
Right.
And
so that's
what's fair about that?
The elections. That's how it's done.
Yeah, that's terrible. Yeah. But I mean, what in like the mainstream media? I mean, at this point, the fact that they're like this whole thing with the parades and everything. What is okay? Like Toronto is probably going to see this more and more, and I feel so sorry for Torontarians. Naked men waving their parts around in front of small children down the street. How is that okay? I'm sorry, but this is what people are going to get more of with someone like Chow in place, obviously, because she supports all that. So the damage to our generations upcoming is going to be phenomenal. Yeah. Of course, that's what they want, the WEF and in the governments, because every choice that they make is all against the citizenships. I mean, like all these bills that they put up against us, like Canada is in so much trouble in so many directions. It's mind-blowing. But I mean, I just cringe. I see more and more naked men waving their parts around in front of little children. Like, what's wrong with the parents that are actually, taking them to these things? What is that? What? I get speechless. I feel sorry for Canadians.
Well, that's why I said tonight one of the number one trending phrase or hashtag on Twitter today is the word nudity, and that's all connected back to Pride Month, right? I was like, nudity. Why is that the word topping the hashtag trends. So I clicked on it, and of course
Yeah.
it was all that stuff.
Yeah,
Like
of course you did.
that's what it is. I was, oh, okay.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. Like, it is. It's getting beyond. But anyways, I won't keep you. I'm sure there's people waiting to call in, and I never had a plan as to what I was going to talk about it. But I needed to take a break from what I was doing, and I was listening, and thought, I'll just call in and say hi to everybody.
Well,
And
thank you. You got it. What you need to do is you need to be our last caller one of these nights, so you can sing us a song and sing us out again, because that was a beautiful thing you did. That was quite a while ago when you sang.
Aw.
That was really
yeah,
nice.
it was. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Rick. Well, maybe we could arrange something like that. I've actually got some of my music equipment out. This is part of what I've been doing, digging crap out. And I've had people. I did a little set for somebody who used to run a club here, and she was so excited. She's like, "The people of this place need to hear you." And it sort of lit a fire under me. So I dug out my gear and whatever. And yeah, I mean, if I have a heads up ahead of time, I'd be happy to do a tune or two on video for you. I guess it would have to be original, because then there won't be any copyright issues, and I have plenty of originals I could do. So we could stick to an original thing, and yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
That'd be nice. That'd be real nice. Thank you for calling in tonight.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you're
as always.
welcome. Nice to talk to you.
Good to
Thank
talk
you.
to you too.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All
Yeah,
right.
so if I get a heads up ahead of time, we can figure something out.
Okay.
Just let me know.
Well, you just pick a day, and that'll be fine with me. You get whatever you want to get prepared, and we'll fire it up.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay,
Let's
take
go
care.
out to British Columbia. Here's the man. Plug your ears. He sometimes gets a little bit colorful with the language. Hang on here. And there he is. There you go.
Colorful. That's me.
Yes, to say the least.
At a minimum. Yeah, indeed. If not a little bit dramatic. So, okay, given the last couple of conversations there, who did we have on there? Mouse. The whole, the Trojan. See this, I was on there with you guys the other night. We were on just briefly, though. We ended up getting back to the other, but that's what I was getting at. Is that I mean, nobody ultimately knows over here, right?
Right.
We're all just taking our stab in the dark. But I mean, for me, I thought it was a Trojan horse, because Prigozhin, I mean, he's nothing but a loyalist. Like he's in deep with all the guys up high. Like, so it just seems kind of crazy to think that he's going to go against his own blah, 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 blah. And I mean, the problem arose and died as quick as it arose. Right. So I find that that's very telling. So, and then I think, given that if you go with that logic, that basically what we're seeing now is more of a shaping of the battlefield. And because they've basically got all of their front lines in position, they're working their way up to the Dnieper River. And so we're watching a lot of shaping going on right now, because for anybody to move anywhere forward, you have to have that many more men behind you for the logistics, right? So once again, keeping these logics in mind, this just buys them time. This just bought them time to do a whole bunch of extra maneuvers with, and not have to blame somebody across the pond per se. Right. So they put down their own little rigmarole. I mean, I don't know 100%. Nobody does. Right. Like I said, it's all a stab in the dark. But then I can also run a parallel with our other conversation on the politics here in Canada. Whereas I feel like I told you prior, that last election, it had nothing to do with getting the majority. Everybody was driven. That's all I heard. He wants a majority. He wants a majority. I'm like, yeah, bullshit. He's shaping the battlefield. And this is where I run the parallel. Right now, he's been putting, C-18, C-11, all of these bills in play. And there's more to come, as you've made mention yourself.
Yes.
So I find that this whole other 4 years was just to shape the battlefield to get the full usurp done. Because this is a coup d'etat from the inside out. That's what I call it. Personally, that was my take on it, sir.
Okay.
And so I'm glad everybody agrees with me just indirectly. You just didn't know you was agreeing with me.
Even though you're out in BC, do you have any views on this mayoral by-election in Toronto?
Well, that's what I was getting at. I mean, in my opinion, in Canada, nobody's politically educated, first and foremost. You go to European countries and they all understand who's running, why they're running, what party they're from. Everybody that's in the party, they know what the issues are. Like, look at the Macron there. He was screwing with the old age package, pension packages.
Yeah.
And then there's an uproar like that. You know what I mean? So they're politically connected, right? In an educated way. So when somebody screws around, they hear it right away. They know that that's propaganda, or okay, we ought to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
You know, like they get the difference. So in my opinion, Canada needs to have political sciences back in school, create more critical thinkers that way, so they can, first of all, not just become critical thinkers, but also understand the system that they got to play within in order to be able to win within.
Yeah, they certainly
because this system is not designed to be won.
They need to teach civics
exactly
in school again.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. But the system's not designed to be won. If you look at the stock market, right? They had that whole thing with the game company or whatever, and then everybody started betting against it because dude figured it out how to get a bunch of dough out of the market. They just shut them down.
Right.
It's not designed to be won. That's what people in Canada don't understand. Our system is not designed for us to win. We are fucking slaves, debt slaves. That's all we are. We're just fucking cattle. And that's my honest opinion. But I honestly believe that, number one, education needs to be in the schools, and I think that you have to vote every year when it comes to your provincial and your federal. And if you want to worry about your like, what do they call it when you're right here at home? My town,
municipality or municipal
but then
elections.
that's optional. Yeah, that's more of an optional thing. But your provincial and your federal should be mandatory, that you have to vote. And then we know the count every year, what's expected. We know it'll be much easier to track if someone's screwing around with it, first and foremost. So like one good thing backs up another good thing, right? Back to the,
I
the
believe
rising
in
tide.
freedom. I don't believe in forcing people to vote. I don't think that it should be, a mandatory legal thing. Because in a free society, people should be allowed to vote or not vote. That's
well, I
my
understand
view.
that's your position on it.
Yeah.
And I'm good with that. It's just I think it would be like if you want to have a diplomatic society, then you need to be responsible within that society for the diplomacy. If you're not voting, you're not being responsible.
You mean democracy?
And that's or democracy. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
You need to be responsible for that. Otherwise, you can't really bitch about it. And then when you're all stuck in cages, getting jobs you don't want, well, what do you say, right? But anyway, I think there's a couple of small things that we, for me to bend the knee to go and vote for who I want in power over me seems to be a small ask on a legal, comparatively speaking, to the crap we've gone through in the last 3 years and continue to go through probably for the next 10 or so, because these people are still all going through court.
I think
and are sitting in jail, political prisoners.
The biggest problem we have is that there needs to be some way to make the coverage and exposure that candidates get fairer. I know that it's very difficult when you have over 80 people running to be the mayor where everybody gets equal exposure. But at the same time, you can see that the media coverage was extremely skewed and focused on just a few candidates. And as a result, I think the media really is responsible for the election tonight of Olivia Chow in Toronto. And that's an example of what the whole problem is with the system, where they exclude certain
Well, look
candidates
her.
from debates and they don't get a fair shake in, in the media. But I'm not sure I have the answers to those issues today in an era of social media and evolving technology. So these are things that need to be resolved, and it's going to take some time.
Well, they're definitely colliding principles. I will give you that. But I mean, I really don't think they're really as complicated as everybody wants to make it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about morality, right? When you stick with the morality of a situation, you got stern, firm principles, then you usually end up doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Not the popular, maybe, but the right thing, right? I mean, and back to Chow. I mean, look who her husband is.
Yeah.
Like, she's got popularity coming out the yin yang.
Yes.
So it's more than understandable. You know what I mean? That she's
Mm-hmm.
running and ahead. So she definitely has the advantage that way. But I agree with you with the media and all of those things. But like I said, that's back to the shaping of the battlefield, right?
Yep.
That's Trudeau, hard at work, right? And not that, these provincial boys and girls aren't hard at work either. Like, look here in BC, we got Eby, right?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even get elected, right? Our government was actually awarded the most secretive government. We got an award for that. Can you imagine? I didn't even know that they gave out an award for that. And I wondered, how did you beat Trudeau? But anyway, that was when Horgan was in. But anyway, he went out with throat cancer or something, a recovery stage, or I'm not sure what all the ins and outs are. Hopefully he gets better. But he was really selling us down the road. And then he kicks out and throws EB in, and now we're stuck with this dude until whenever. Right? So another unelected official and pushing all the garbage you can imagine.
Well, listen, sir, we're going to move on. Thank you very much for the
sort of
call.
guarantee, right?
I've got another guy in the queue here, so we've got to wrap up soon, so I better move on. But thank you. Great comments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Have yourselves a good night, and peace and love to all the Mavericks.
Thank you, sir. Have a great night. Okay, who do we have on the line? It's a 905 area code, so you must be tuned into what's going on out there in Toronto.
It's Steve Harvey.
Sorry, go ahead. Who is it? Harvey? It's very low.
Sir, it's Steve Harvey.
Well, hello. How are you?
First time calling in there, Rick.
Well, thank you for calling.
You catching me all right?
I am. We can hear you.
No problem.
Great.
All right. I don't know what to tell you Mavericks tonight. I could tell you all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
Rick, you know where we came from, right? You know where we started with the myth.
Well, why don't you fill me in?
You got you all right? We did put that movie up on The Myth is Canada for you. So if you want to go over to that and take a look, you can see that the movie there, the Great Awakening. You can see that. But anyhow, I'm always amazed that nobody actually pays attention to the game. And it's a real simple game.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Monopoly.
Yeah. So are you still there, Steve? Hello, Steve. Well, it looks like we lost Steve. Okay, well, folks, it is 9:25, and we'll just check in here again. Not sure where he went. He was a little garbled there at the beginning. Not sure. Anyway, let's look here. So Olivia Chow in Toronto, 266,223 votes, 37.1% of the votes in total. 1,411 of 1,451 polls reporting. And in second spot, Anna Baileo, 233,094. So not too many polls left very clear that with what about 5%, 4.5%, 5% separating the two leaders, that Olivia Chow will be the new mayor of Toronto. And other news organizations projecting that as well tonight at this point, projecting an Olivia Chow victory in Toronto, Ontario, Canada's most populous city. And that means more socialism, more neoliberal wokeism. And that's the way it is. And tonight on this 26th day of June, 2023. And as we now approach just minutes before 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, I think it's about time that we probably wrap it up here tonight because we've gone later than normal. I appreciate everyone who called in this evening. I appreciate you guys spending your time with us here tonight. And I'm sorry that we lost our last caller there at the end. Yeah, and we will wrap that up. So I'll be back maybe tomorrow night, as Lori let you know. I might not be able to join you tomorrow night. I have some family things that I need to take care of. So it may be a night off for me tomorrow. I will try to be here at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If that is the case, notification will go out when we post the video. I'll probably be broadcasting from another location instead of the studio tomorrow night. But there's an off chance I won't be. So if you haven't subscribed, please do that on YouTube. And make sure you subscribe over on Rumble if you haven't done that. Like, share, subscribe. And I'll just take that down for tonight. And again, I appreciate everyone spending your time with us here this evening. I will have more, as I say, tomorrow night, if not the night after, here on the Maverick News Channel. Catch you all on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia Production.